This conference will now be recorded.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Jim, Justin with Howard.
Hello?
Oh, it's moderating.
Hello?
Hi.
Who is that saying hello? We can hear you.
Oh, you can? All right.
Yep.
I'm here.
Okay.
Who is
Who's I am here?
Anybody else? Ed Phillips. Ed Phillips, Wilkes County.
Okay.
it? Philip.
Jan, this is Justin Brendel with Howard.
Thank you.
Charles Rice with Charles District is here.
Thanks, Charles. So I'm going to do a little housekeeping before we get started for the people who are on the line. We're going to have a lot of people on the call today. And so if everybody can mute themselves. There we go. I think that'll work. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, we're at 9 o'clock now and we've got 54 people on, so.
Hey, Jen, let me know when you want to get started.
Well, the first thing we have is the roll call.
Right.
You know,
Chris
so
Brown.
yes.
Right.
I am here.
I am here. Good. We'll wait a couple more minutes, I guess.
Okay. Just to get as many people. We've had a lot of people join just in the last minute, so. Just so that we don't have to do the roll call twice, right?
I appreciate it.
It looks like people are slowing down and joining. Oh, I just said that and now more people are joining. But I think hopefully we've got a critical mass. If we want to go ahead and start the roll call, maybe we can go back and fill in, but we've only had a few people join on in this minute. So
We'll wait another minute and then I'll call the meeting to order.
okay, sounds good.
Okay, I have 9:03. So this is Bruce Sharkus. I will call the meeting to order. I want to thank everybody for joining in.
Bruce, who?
Never heard of you.
I'm getting tired of virtual meetings, but I thought it was wise that this meeting be virtual. I look forward to when we can get back in person, and hopefully that'll be sooner than later. But I appreciate everybody taking the time for this meeting. So I will ask Chris Brown, the secretary, to call the roll call.
Thank you, Bruce. Allegheny.
Allegheny's here.
Thank you. Anne Arundel. Anne Arundel. Baltimore. Baltimore.
Here. Baltimore's here.
Thank you. Denver. I think Tommy was on here.
Yep.
Caroline.
Caroline is here.
Thank you. Carol.
Carol's here.
Stockton.
Stockton's here.
This is Heather from Stockton.
Okay. Cecil.
Cecil's here.
Charles.
Charles is here.
Dorchester. Dorchester here. Frederick.
Frederick's here.
Here.
Garrett.
Roger's here for manager.
Harford.
Harford's here.
Howard. Is Howard on?
District manager for Howard is here. I'm expecting a couple of supervisors.
Okay, thank you. Kent.
Ken is here.
Montgomery.
Montgomery here.
Montgomery's here.
Thank you. Prince George. Prince George's.
Prince George's is here. Cal Stewart attending.
Thank you. Queen Anne's.
Queen Anne's is here.
Thank you. St. Mary's.
St. Mary's here.
Somerset.
Somerset's here.
Talbot.
Sean Smith, Kyle Hutchison, and John Swain are here.
Thank you. Washington.
Here.
Wacomico.
Wacomico's here.
Thank you. Worcester.
Doug says he's here. His mic is not working.
Okay.
He's in the chat.
Okay, I'm going back through. I'll give the ones we missed another chance. Anne Arundel. Anne Arundel. Dorchester. Dorchester.
Dorchester's here.
Thank you. And then we should be good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Assuming we have a quorum. So did everybody get a copy of the minutes from our last quarterly meeting in October? Any comments or amendments or additions? If not, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
This is Bobby Guy. Move to
Is there a second?
Second.
And in keeping with virtual meeting protocol, all those opposed signify by saying aye. So moved. Treasurer's report, Mike.
Screw it. I'll have him check it.
There you go, Mike. Go ahead and speak. Can you see?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, so you want me to start over? I don't know if anybody heard any of that or not.
No, we didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. We'll start out with the profit loss sheet here from July of 1st, 21 to February 3rd of 22. The endowment had a net income there of $28,405 and 42 cents. If you go down a little further on the same page there, you'll see where the Envirothon had a net income also of $26,753.62. And I think if you skip to the last page, you'll see where the MASCD actually had a net income of a minus $4,900.11.39, with a total income there of $50,247.65. With that being said, for the balance sheet for the all the endowment there, they have a total of $529,502.56. The Envirothon is looking at a total of $124,663.69. And MASCD with their checking and money markets are at $204,995.04.
Okay.
Any questions?
Any questions for Mike? Okay. If not, can I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
So move.
Could you say your name and district?
Cal Stewart, Prince George's. So move. Accept.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Bobby Cooper, St. Mary's. Second.
Okay. All those opposed? So moved. Thank you. Let's move into MASCD reports with the executive director's report. Jen?
All right, thanks, Bruce. So I don't have a PowerPoint, but I just wanted to go over a few items that we've been working on since our board meeting in October. So at the October board meeting, we had decided to form 2 ad hoc committees. The first committee is tasked to look at our long-term budget and income sources to ensure the long-term financial sustainability of the organization. So the budget committee met on February 3rd and set a goal to develop some preliminary recommendations for the board of directors meeting in March in order to develop a final set of recommendations probably for the annual meeting. So that's the timeline that we're looking at there. The second committee was formed to look for opportunities for MASCD to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion and what that would mean for the organization. So that committee met on January 25th, and we had good discussion on the objectives and the timeline for that group. So we've reached out to Kim LaFleur, who is NACD's first vice president, to talk to the group about NACD's process for developing a policy statement, their task force, and recommendations that they had for state associations and conservation districts. And we are looking at to give an update at the March board meeting for the direction that that group is going to take. So moving on to grants and an update on those. So MASCD received a Keith Campbell Foundation grant to support a leadership development initiative for $35,000. I'm working with Alicia to host some district manager lunch and learn roundtable discussions quarterly. As part of that, we had one on October 18th that was a session on annual work planning and strategic planning. That was a really good discussion. Then we had our second one at the end of January, and we talked about important skill sets for managers and resources that are available for managers to look into and build those skill sets. And then we've got the next one coming up on April 18th to talk about funding sources for the districts. So I think those are going pretty well and providing a good forum for the districts to share ideas and resources, and just to be able to chat about different aspects of the job there. Also included in that grant is a task to develop a manager's manual similar to a supervisor's handbook that will probably include a lot of the things that come out of those roundtable discussions. And also to provide for my staff time and Missy and Marguerite's staff time to develop and execute a Maryland management and leadership development program. So we've not gotten very far down the road with what that looks like. We'll be working with the partners on that as well to develop that and provide that resource. So the second thing that I have is a training grant from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And so I wanted to share a website real quick that is not very far developed, but just wanted to give you guys a sense of what this is going to look like. So it's conservationtraining.info. And what I'd like to do over time is to develop this as a resource for conservation planners and technicians to house different training resources that are developed. So we're working with NRCS and MDA. They've taken the lead on putting together a Maryland orientation training for some of the new staff that's come on with MDA and NRCS. And so those are underway right now, and those sessions are being recorded. And when they're done, we can house them on this website. And they teach new staff about, you know, Maryland land uses and different soil types and you know, watershed implementation planning and critical areas, and kind of all of the basic things that are specific to Maryland that the planners need to know, and technicians. And then the other piece that we have here that we've worked on in the past quarter is this first virtual tour for Roundabout Farm. And I want to thank the St. Mary's Soil Conservation District and Sarah Lewis for helping me put this together. And the point of these virtual tours is to kind of provide an on-the-ground example of what conservation planning looked like, and working with landowners, and how all of those resources come together. And so we put this first one together and wanted to share it out with the districts to show what we were trying to do. And then I'd like to work to create 4 more of these. So I've already heard from Allegheny County with a couple of potential operations to reach out to. But just to show you, we've got, you know, a video here with the landowners talking. I wanted to feature Sarah and the work that she does as well. And then there's a really cool feature, these 360 videos that it automatically starts talking, but you can scroll around and then add different, they call them hotspots, you know, to highlight videos and different sources, just to show, you know, it's just a different way of showing some of the information. So it lets us go to different areas on the farm where you can scroll around and provide some different information. And then we also link it with best management practices that are on the farm, and then some of the GIS resources. So we can shape these up any way we want to with the different districts or different farms that we feature. But I just wanted to give you guys a sense of what we were working on there. So I'll go ahead and move that back over here so that we're bringing up the agenda again. But if anybody has some ideas for farms that we can feature through those virtual farm tours, let me know, and I'd be happy to set that up in the spring. I also wanted to point out that Maryland recognized its first Leopold Conservation Award winner at the Maryland Farm Bureau Convention in December. So I wanted to say congratulations to Persistence Creek Farm and the Waring family. I am going to go ahead and drop a link to that feature on the Sand County Foundation's website in the chat, so that you guys can all kind of go back and look at that at your convenience. And I shouldn't try to talk and do that at the same time because that's not working very well. But there's that, so that you can go and take a look. It was a really nice recognition, and I just appreciate them as the first awardees, and I look forward to continuing to do that in future years. And so I also just wanted to make a point that the Delmarva Soil Summit was held earlier this week, Monday and Tuesday. And so I worked on that project under a different hat, but I did want to take a moment to thank all of Maryland's conservation partners that worked on that. So we had generous sponsorships from MDA, the PG Prince George's Soil Conservation District, from NRCS, and several of the other conservation districts. And those sponsorships were really essential to making the conference work, because we made investments to offer this in a hybrid format for virtual and in-person presenters, and to bring in a really good speaker lineup. So I just wanted to recognize that there, but also the staff time that went into planning. So there were a lot of Maryland partners that were involved with the planning team. So Alicia Mulkey, Steve Darcy, Kevin Antashevsky, 3 members from the Hughes Center for Agroecology, Elizabeth Beggins with the Million Acre Challenge, Baron Rogers with UMES, and Sarah Hirsch, the extension agent in Somerset County. And they were all really critical and put in a lot of time to pulling that off. So I wanted to thank them in this forum specifically. And so the other things that I have that we've been working on, our annual report is in the works. And the other things that we have show up later in the agenda with the small pond reviews and the combined MASCD and NACD Northeast region meeting this summer. So that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions for Jen? I've been very busy. So.
Mr. President, this is Steve Darcy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I just want to say thank you so much to Jen for her leadership and keeping everybody on task to make the Soil Summit quite a success under the circumstances that we were dealing with. And I would encourage, we have 2 years before the next one. I'm telling you, this is well worth as many technicians and planners and supervisors in Maryland to attend. It's really enlightening. The speakers are engaging, and to meet other people from around the Delmarva that are doing different things. I strongly suggest that everybody consider supporting it next year and attending it. And we're hoping, not next year, in 2024. And I'm hoping, of course, that it'll be in person. The venue this year was at the Wycomico Civic Center, which is a rather large building. And I think we could easily pack that thing with 300 people. So I'm going to be kind of hounding people throughout until the next one, because I'm telling you, it's probably the best conference that I've ever attended. I attended in 2020. I've told everybody, best conference I ever attended in my whole career. This one was also equally as informative and engaging. And I just kudos to Jen. She did an excellent job. So I'd like everybody to know that.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you for that plug. And I really appreciate, you guys probably don't know how much Steve kind of stepped up to patch holes and fill in at the last minute. And he did a great job. And I really appreciated that so much. So.
My pleasure, Jen. Thank you.
All right. Legislative update. Mike Mason. Mike?
Good morning, everybody. I am, Jen, do I have permission to share? I was going to share my Excel spreadsheet of legislation that we've been tracking this year. Or Missy, if you can possibly get that.
Whoever gets to it first.
Yeah. Well, yeah, before that, well, good morning, everyone. It's a shame we couldn't be here in person, but it looks like we're kind of starting to trend in a positive direction. We got off to a really quick start here this session. A lot of the legislators are in town. We had the opportunity to kind of get in front of a lot of our Senate membership as the entire chamber's been in fully working committees Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. The House has had more pro forma floor sessions, which should be changing here, I believe, next week or the following week, where all the members will be coming back. Just yesterday, the Senate president just changed and updated the protocols. The committees will be going back on the Senate side in person. The House will remain virtual. It's going to be a fun month until we get that figured out, how to kind of manage to be in two places at one time on the internet and in front of committee. But if you are down and want to make contact with your legislators, it is open to the public currently. You just have to have your photo ID and also be wearing a mask as well too. And then once you get inside the legislators' offices, it's up to them what they want to determine from there. So Jen and I have been communicating since the start of session, and even before on a weekly basis. Sometimes I think I bug her too much with stuff that's going on, but just want to make sure that the association's, informed on everything that's been coming down the line. Big subject matters this year, obviously, is cannabis legalization for recreational use. We have a constitutional amendment bill in right now. And there's also been some framework bills that have been introduced this past week as well, too, to start the discussion. Down the line, I bring that up because there are going to be growing operations in our agricultural districts, and it is going to be something that you guys will be probably having to kind of manage as stuff across the board there. So we're going to kind of track and see where that goes. As well. And the other one, of course, it seems that MDE has been in the crosshairs of the legislature this year as well, too, with a number of different bills that I'll get into. And then, of course, the climate change bills are back again this year. Our firm has been actively participating with the Maryland Chamber of Commerce as members on their legislative committee and on their environment and energy subcommittee as well, too, so we can gain kind of better access to see what our business communities are doing and advocate for you guys as well there, too. And also with all of our agricultural stakeholders of Farm Bureau, MDA, and folks, we have a weekly call set up with them so that we're all kind of coordinating efforts on these larger bills as they move forward. So with that, I'm going to address some bills that we're just kind of monitoring and looking into right now, and then some ones that we have supported already. We have opposed one bill formally, and we do have a number of other bills that are coming up that are going to be having hearings soon. This week, there's just been a flurry of bills that have dropped. With the House being pro forma, they really haven't been introducing a ton. This morning, I believe there was about 40 pages of bills in the synopsis that dropped. So they did extend the deadlines. So the next few days, we'll be seeing just more and more kind of come across. So we'll be kind of updating everybody. And then also this year, in coordination with Jen and the district managers and legislative committee, I've been hosting a biweekly call with everybody to kind of review legislation that's happening. I think we've had great participation. I think on Monday we had about 15 to 20 members sign on, and it's been great rhetoric and great opportunity to answer questions and stuff across the board. So if you have any interest there, I will drop my contact information into the chat as well for folks that may have questions after this or want to shoot me a text, call me with things that you guys are kind of seeing. So I assume everybody can kind of see my screen except for folks that may just be calling in. So I'll try to be kind of brief with this across the board. Starting off, House Bill 15, Senate Bill 7, Delegate Lukey and Senator Elfrith introduced the invasive and native plants classification listing use sales and use tax bill. This is just requiring Secretary of Agriculture to classify certain plants as Tier 1, Tier 2. This got actually brought onto our radar with the sales and use tax component of it, where they would be eliminating the sales and use tax for native plants on projects for stream restoration, stormwater management. The fiscal note came in at $200,000. Unfortunately, I think when they actually did a deeper dive in this, that it was going to be a much larger fiscal impact and that they will be pulling that out. I spoke with both the sponsors, and it seems that that's kind of what the general consensus is across the board, is that they're going to be pulling out that tax component. But there is some kind of leeway. John in Montgomery County and I were kind of talking back and forth about whether government entities or quasi would be able to fall underneath that purview to kind of lessen the impact there. So I haven't gotten a response from the sponsors yet, but still kind of monitoring that. House Bill 75, Maryland Agricultural Commission hemp industry member. This is just adding another member to the Maryland Agricultural Commission. This is a recycle bill from last year that's come back up. Getting into bills that we've supported, House Bill 100, we submitted written testimony in support of this for Sustainable Maryland. Sustainable Maryland is just a program that basically works with communities in partnership with Maryland Municipal League in building out sustainable efforts. This is adding an appropriation of $750,000 in FY24. This is not taking away any of their current funds right now. Always good just going on the record, supporting kind of urban agriculture, and as we're kind of moving and additional appropriations and resources for some of our smaller producers in those areas that work with them. House Bill 116, Delegate Love. This was agriculture, right to engage in equine activities. This was a definition bill where it just kind of put in the fact that Marylanders have the right to engage in equine activities. There was some discussion that this may be have some more behind the scenes work when it comes to Sunday hunting in some of our public areas across the state. So we're going to kind of see, but just a general letter of support that we support equine activities, our horse farmers and folks that would like to engage in using our natural resources. House Bill 147, we sent Maryland Farms and Families Fund. This is providing additional resources, again, to our local, more urban producers or smaller producers, and giving them opportunities, as well as giving additional funds to more of our urban farmers markets as well across the board there. So we did a general support letter. House Bill 184 and Senate Bill 229, Environment On-Farm Composting Facilities Permit Exemption. So this bill would allow you to basically set up an on-farm composting facility up to 40,000 square feet without a permit from MDE. Farm Bureau has been working with MDE on this. I talked to Colby yesterday. MDE really wanted to kind of cap this at 10,000 square feet. And I know they've been kind of pushing back and saying, we're kind of stuck on 40,000. So there is a good bit of debate there, but we sent just a general letter of information saying that we support responsible composting and management and the improvements to soil health, just informing so that we're on record saying, hey, we really support composting in these activities. This is going to fall into a local land use issue where it's kind of the state's going to say, okay, we're going to allow this, and then counties are going to kind of have to work with inside their ag zones. One that I was asked to flag, Open Meetings Act and notices, just because some of you, I believe, fall underneath the Open Meetings Act. This is requiring you to expand the amount of years in which you are retaining your information, and then also posting the minutes of it. Some folks were just opposed to this just because of the fact that there is something in there where it requires 2 business days for you to turn around your meeting minutes. So a meeting like this, if it fell underneath the Open Meetings Act, you'd have 2 business days to turn around. They're just asking for basically more general language to say, hey, this is, give people the opportunity and give them the time to do their job and post these meeting minutes online, so we don't have people rushing through them. House Bill 387, Senate Bill 268. We submitted written testimony in opposition of this bill. It is transferring the regulation of pesticides, pesticides, plant diseases, and mosquito management from the Department of Agriculture to the Department of Environment. We sent a letter in opposition saying MDE's been doing this. They've been running this program. It is needless to transfer it. It'll be a large fiscal impact on the state when it's just working perfectly fine. MDA and Farm Bureau has really taken center stage on this. Yesterday was the House hearing. Chairman Barve really kind of entertained both sides for an hour. I don't perceive this bill moving anywhere, especially on the Senate side with the cross-file. Senator Kagan from Montgomery County had said, hey, look, I know this bill's probably not going to go anywhere, but this is where I want to start the conversation and have the conversation of where we can see this kind of transition. Obviously, MDA, came out saying, look, we can do our job. We've been doing it. Across the board there. So we kind of joined on the united front there. If there is additional need here, we will come back to the board to see. Colby and I from Farm Bureau are staying in close coordination as well. And we kind of all had this discussion on our weekly stakeholder call. Upcoming House Bill 540, Delegate Henson. This is additional funding to University of Maryland Extension. This is providing for somebody in the extension offices to promote urban farming and overseeing kind of the urban farming production, crop management, and giving people the additional resources that they need. Anytime there's additional appropriations for agriculture, always great opportunity to weigh in support of it. Unless I hear anything from the legislative committee or the board to oppose it or stay neutral in it, most urban farming programs we have been very supportive of, especially when it comes with appropriated bills or appropriations behind it. House Bill 558, Land Use and Agritourism. This is a cross-file bill from Senator Gallion in Harford County. He introduced this bill on behalf of a farmer, I believe, out in Carroll, who is currently having incidental stays and camping on their farms. We did not weigh in on this. This was more of a monitor. So what this bill does is it alters the definition of agritourism, and it's enabling legislation. So your local counties would have to adopt this definition into the code to allow farmers to allow camping on their farms or small incidental stays as well too. There's a company called Hip Camp out of California. They're kind of like the Airbnb to this, or the VRBO for folks who are familiar with that platform. They can go online, reserve a campsite at like a farm brewery or a winery and stay the night there. This is another one where I had spoke to Jen about where the stage for this fight is really going to be at the local level when it comes to adequate public facilities and everybody's zoning code across the board. So that is going to be something you all will probably end up seeing if this bill passes this year at your local level. House Bill 562, Consumer Protection, Right to Repair Farm Equipment. This bill is back again this year, and I spoke to Colby yesterday about this at Farm Bureau. This is allowing for folks to go kind of outside their manufacturer to hire third-party folks to come onto the farm and fix their equipment. A lot of this is back and forth from some of the bigger dealers. I know John Deere and Atlantic Tractors coming in opposing this because obviously they want you using their techs. This is something we can either get involved in this or we can kind of stay out of it just because it's, an equipment, kind of diagnostic repair bill. So it's up to folks. My advice personally, just speaking off the cuff here, I think just because of the fact that some of you and boards partner and have large dealerships that will be in support of this and some folks that are opposed to this, it's kind of, I don't know if it's great for the association, but it's something we can definitely open up to talk about if you guys want to send a support or opposition letter there. House Bill 596. This is within the flurry of climate change bills that are coming. This is another recycle bill that's been going. Chesapeake Bay Foundation's been pushing this for years, and this is a constitutional amendment for environmental rights. This is basically giving everybody the right to a clean environment in the state of Maryland, and can basically allow anybody, if you're impeding my right to a clean environment, to sue somebody. I have heard that the chairman is going to need some people to weigh in on this year. Chairman Barve has been able to keep the lid on this in the House. But if we are in opposition with this, this is going to be folks and a lot of your farmers, especially on the shore, where neighbors can possibly complain and have issues that are going to go beyond this and have the state and the court system involved. So we'll have more on Friday, and I'll have kind of better insight here of what our strategy should be when Jen and I participate on that call. So we can kind of develop an idea of a general opposition letter, or we can stay neutral to it as well. House Bill 653, the Conservation Finance Act. This was supported by a number of our allied agricultural kind of groups last year and the prior year. Senator Elfreth has cross-filed this bill. It's providing additional resources for folks, especially in the MAX program as well, and doesn't deny anybody the right to apply for the grants or receive grant funding there. So once again, opening up another funding stream for folks across the board, and our farmers there. So perceive just doing a general support letter as well. I know grain producers and I believe Farm Bureau had supported that last year. Delegate Hartman from the Lower Shore, he is also trying to change the definition of agritourism by including special events and occasions conducted on a farm that generate income. So anything that you would have that would be, hay rides, or that nothing that's currently underneath the agritourism definition. I'm pretty sure actually hay rides are, now that I mentioned that, already specifically mentioned in there. But anything that's not in the definition of the code, he's just saying this is a blanket way that we're going to call agritourism, is if you have a farm and you're making income off of it, it's agritourism. House Bill 829, we actually just discussed this with the chamber. This is the Department of the Environment zero emission medium and heavy duty vehicles. So Maryland adopted the California standards to this several years ago. This is basically adopting their standards again when it comes to medium and heavy duty vehicle regulations. And I just saw Steve can't hear me. So can everybody else hear me, Erica?
I can hear you, Mike.
Okay. So this bill is going to be coming up for a hearing as well too. I got to get a little bit more info on how this is going to kind of impact folks across the board, because California's standards are based on gross vehicle weight. So this one is anything 10,000 above and 26,000 above when you have those classifications for zero emission standards. So I am going to get some more info on that so that we can kind of make a decision whether or not we want to get involved with that. House Bill 855, this just dropped 2 days ago, the Urban Agriculture, Water and Power Infrastructure Grant Program Fund. I haven't seen the text on this bill yet from Delegate Boyce, but it seems to be continually adding funding to the urban agricultural programs. This is a big focus this year for the legislature as well when it comes to ag, is kind of retaining our current urban farmers and kind of expanding opportunities in green spaces that are available. House Bill 869, Delegate Gilchrist, Wetlands and Waterways Program. This is kind of creating a separate permitting application and track for ecological restoration projects. Full disclosure, this bill is coming out of our shop on behalf of another one of our clients that currently do projects on farms and with counties when it comes to stream restorations. For ecological restoration, there is no permitting track or separate permit. When they fill out their current permits with MDE, they have to click other and write them in. So this is basically bringing all the stakeholders together and figuring out a better way to do that to get these projects implemented. I can get you some more information if folks are interested on that. This is not lessening restrictions, taking away any kind of oversight or purview during the review process. This is basically just creating that separate track for these folks that are out there. House Bill 1002, Delegate Lukey dropped this morning, sales and use tax electricity for agricultural purposes. This will be a exemption for farmers. I haven't seen a ton of info on this yet, and the text hasn't been released on it. I know Chop Tank Electric Cooperative is currently working on this bill right now. So I'm going to get some more information from them as that kind of moves forward when we get the hearing date on that. House Bill 1031, land conservation, establishment of goals and programs. This is another one that dropped this morning. Don't have the text available yet, but we'll get that for our folks and to Jen on our call. Moving into Senate bill, we've gone through a lot of these. We sent our support letters for the cross files, letter of information for permitting across the board there. Senate Bill 437, the cross file for University of Maryland Extension. Senate Bill 528, this is the Large Climate Solutions Now Act of 2022. This is basically saying that natural gas will not be permitted to be used in the state of Maryland by 2045 and has extremely aggressive climate goals. For you folks in Somerset County that just got hooked up to natural gas, this is the legislature saying, hey, that's great. Glad you got it. 2045, you're not going to use it. This is a 52-page review. My suggestion on here is we work with our stakeholders. On Friday, we're going to kind of all gain a united front from the agricultural community to say, this is how this is going to hurt us. My suggestion would be submitting written testimony in opposition to this bill, and then we kind of see where it is. On bills that are this large, that are overarching of an entire environmental issue and overreaching with all the climate change aspects, it's stuff where we can kind of go to the table with written testimony and then kind of work to see how things shake out on the back end. But we'll be working with all our stakeholders across the board on that. And then Senator Elfrith dropped Senate Bill 567. This is from Kevin Addix and Grow and Fortify. This is an agricultural use assessment. This is for your local producers. So if they have a small plot that's used for basically agricultural or value added goods that are there. So if you're storing them there and it's for agricultural purposes or a byproduct of that, this would basically require STAT to use it as an agricultural use assessment, providing tax relief to our local producers. Senate Bill 601, Baltimore City Soil Conservation District Establishment Requirements. Last year, they had dropped the framework bill to establish, or to the general one to establish one. Baltimore City Council met this year to kind of review the framework and all the stakeholders within the internal portion of the government to say, okay, how would the inner workings of Baltimore city government get involved in this? This is more of the framework and structure of who's being appointed to what position and how the office is actually set up. The hearing on this is tomorrow morning at the Baltimore City delegation meeting. I will be attending that meeting to kind of get some more information on that. This is one that I wanted to pause on just to gain any kind of insight from folks on where they want to go. My initial assumption is that we want to be supportive of this because it falls within the policy manual. But of course, like everything, the devil's in the details. So for here, I will break for anybody's thoughts, opinions, how we kind of want to manage this. But my thought would be, if we are supporting, is have Jen or myself provide oral and written testimony for this hearing. So I will turn it over before I wrap up if anyone has any questions on that.
Any questions for Mike on his report?
Mike, this is Lee McDaniel in Hartford.
Hey, Lee.
I testified before the city council back in 2000 to try to get them to get their district established. I think if it's the governance issue of how the supervisors will be appointed. I think you can probably tell them that, the general format, I think, is one of the supervisors is appointed by the local government and the other 4 by the State Soil Conservation Committee, and I'd recommend that they follow that since that's the way I think all the districts operate. That helps you any.
Yeah, no, that definitely does. And if that's the consensus, then we can move forward with that. And I can kind of weigh in there on it. Anybody else?
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
So with regard to the constitutional amendment bill, I know that's because it's a constitutional amendment. I know there's a lot of hesitation on the body of the legislature to act on it, because I know what I understand from Delegate Frazier Hidalgo is that would require it to go to referendum in order for that to happen. But from an editorial point of view, obviously it's a terrible bill. The districts unfortunately are in the position to basically, whenever there's a land complaint regarding agriculture, we're always intertwined in those. And most of the times that we go out on those complaints, they're usually unfounded and they're really being driven by something else and not by what's happening on the farm. And I could just see where we could get seriously bogged down chasing our tails and chasing specters that don't really exist, and really pulling us away from things we need to be working on to address the real issues that are happening, and not these phantom complaints that we chase down. And so I would encourage that that we strongly oppose that bill, strictly from the standpoint of it just puts too much. It just opens a big can of worms that I think will end up getting bogged down and not being able to fulfill what our core mission is, which is really to kind of solve resource concerns that are happening, in our districts, and just basically chasing, unsubstantiated, unfounded complaints.
Sure. No, and completely agree with you. I think the resource use on this, I don't perceive this moving anywhere again this year. I just know Chairman Barbay's done a really good job the past few years kind of quelling this one. And so I think he's just going to need the additional support there. And I'm fine with doing that. I mean, there's going to be a lot of folks coming in. I know the chamber and individual businesses, I just got off a call with them. There's going to be a bunch on that opposing this as well too, because it's very similar issues across the board. And I'm pretty sure this is another one that I know Mako in the past has opposed. I don't know what they're doing this year on it though.
And one other question about the constitutional amendment with legalizing some of the cannabis use, because I know when we talked in the past about hemp production and its coattails with nutrient management, that the university wasn't really on board with providing recommendations for growing cannabis. So is that something that is still going to be a concern if this constitutional amendment passes?
To be honest with you, John, I don't think they're even thinking that far right now. I think their main focus right now is on the social justice aspect of it. Not even the production side of it is more of, okay, how do we regulate? How do we get folks out of the justice system who are locked up for these small offenses that are on there? And that's what Delegate Klippinger dropped a bill, I think tail end of last week. He's the chair of judiciary over in the House, just to get the conversation started. And look, the way these things go, and it's happened in the past, and it happened with the medical cannabis as well too, is I think the folks got kind of, the legislature and folks got caught flat-footed, and so this is an opportunity for them where they're going to try not to this time. And it's kind of the similar thing that happened with single game sports betting last year, where they didn't really have a plan on behind it. I think they are trying to start those conversations now. I don't know where that is on the radar, but I can talk to the bill sponsor and kind of see where they're trending towards that.
Mike, this is Dee from Washington County.
Yeah.
I have a question regarding the bill for the Open Meetings Act.
Yes.
With regard to the posting of minutes within 48 hours. In our district, and I assume it's the same across the state, minutes are completed after a meeting, and then they're held until the following meeting, which is the next month, for approval. At that point, they can be made public. So how would that work?
That was one of the questions that got completely brought up, and that is a great question there. These bills coming back again, more recycles from the prior year. I know that some of the folks are working together to try and hash a lot of that out. And you raise a really good point to that, to say, hey, as an association, here's the way that we operate. Here's where we can approve our minutes per these meetings. And so that's a very good point.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Dee, I'll express that. I should actually see the sponsor this morning, so I'll express the concerns kind of just as an FYI.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, Steve Darcy, Prince George's. Good
Yes,
report. I've talked to my buddy John Z in Montgomery County about the composting. I've composted for years, 30 years on the farm, and had a small business where I'd bring horse manure in and compost it. When MDE changed their regulations and started requiring permits, I got out of it because it was going to be too expensive for me to build a pad and do all the things that I needed to do. The piece of legislation regarding the food waste compost kind of scares me a little bit. An acre of food waste is a big piece of land with a lot of nasty food scraps on it. I've been on sites where a farmer filled up a concrete bin, 3-sided bin, with a couple tractor trailer loads of vegetables in the middle of the summer. In 3 days, it was a rotting, stinking pile mess. Now, I know he wasn't composting it, but I'm a little concerned, and I know John disagrees with me. I'm a little concerned that we relieve the need for a permit from MDE for food waste composting on farm, and then it becomes the issue for each individual county. I think that's going to be a real mess for each county. Anybody that's done any composting, especially food scrap composting, it is not your normal composting operation, and people really need to know how to do it and do it right. I really think we're going to have, at an individual county level, I think it's going to be a real mess.
Yeah, and see that kind of lends to my point of us is sending a letter of information saying, hey, as an association, we're inside here. We really support it. We understand the benefits of composting and the soil health here. But in the letter, we called for a conjoined effort between MDE and a reasonable one to kind of implement the program. As I advised to Jen, some of these with going into local land use issues and folks, John and I spoke about this bill at length, and every county's got different agricultural zones and ones that are set up. And so it's going to be, what may be good and work in Montgomery County may be a terrible idea in Kent County. And so that's kind of why we kind of erred on that. I do know that there is going to be a lot of changes to this amendment or to this bill, and there's going to be a number of amendments coming from the framework of it. I don't perceive this bill moving this year as is right now. Just because it's kind of falling like mid-range on MDE's kind of totem pole of issues. Like I said, they've had a flurry of things this year where they've kind of been under fire. But I will kind of get an update from the bill sponsor as well too, because we're working with him on a number of other things as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I saw somebody drop something into the chat.
Yeah, there's a couple.
Appointments. SSC channels. Okay.
Any other questions for Mike? Mike, do you have anything else?
That is all I have right now. other than going to catch some folks before they go in for the floor session, I will, like I said, I will drop my contact information, my email and stuff into the chat right now, and my cell number. If anyone has any questions or would like to participate in our biweekly calls, please feel free to reach out.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
I want to thank you and Providence for your work and starting up these bi-weekly calls to keep us all informed. So I appreciate your keeping on track of all these bills. So thanks again.
Of course, and like I said, if anyone has one that pops up that they're thinking or maybe finding, feel free to reach out to me.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
We'll move into partner updates. John Sullivan, who is our new FSA State Executive Director. John, want to congratulate you on your recent appointment. We're looking forward to working with you in that capacity. Thanks, John.
Bruce, if I may, for those of you who don't know me, John Sullivan, I spent 21 years in county government, 5 years with MDE, focusing a lot of attention on biosolids application, waste diversion, which gets into the composting issue, and AFOs. And I'm very proud of my appointment to State Executive Director of the Farm Service Agency, President Biden appointment. It's been vacant for over a year, and I started last Monday, joined by my wonderful wife, who is very supportive of this. But I promise to be in every county of the state and meet our stakeholders and partners from across the state, as well as my staff. We have a staff of about 70, and Laura from my office will give some updates if she's on the call. But thank you, and I look forward to becoming more engaged with this group. Thanks for the opportunity, Bruce.
Thanks, John. Laura, are you on the phone?
Hey, I'm here. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so you can hear me. I had some issues earlier and I was trying to get them sorted out. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Pleasanton, and I'm a program specialist with the Farm Service Agency. You heard from our new State Executive Director, John Sullivan. Since his hands are full and I think he already has to hop on another phone call, I figured the least I could do if he's leading the agency as a brand new leader to FSA, I at least could finish out the update. So I work primarily with our conservation program. So as usual, I say this every time, but I'll give you a quick update about what's going on across the state. But I'll let people like Rob McAfee cover more of the COVID type staffing issues and things like that. Overall, I would say this year has been a bit easier than last in terms of program delivery. Last year we had CFAP and WIP Plus, and it was just chaos. But for farm programs, we are in sign-up season. And real quick, I'll just mention that some of this I'm just mentioning because many of you are, on the board of supervisors and you are the leaders in the ag community. And then the remainder of you are working in the service centers where you get to interact with producers. So I just wanted to take a couple minutes to mention some of the upcoming deadlines we have. So basically we're in sign up season, and ARC PLC sign up is going on. So that's the agricultural risk coverage and price loss coverage program that we just call ARC PLC. It started back in October, but the deadline's coming up and it runs through March 15th. These programs, they only kick in when certain criteria are met. So hopefully we won't need them, but it doesn't always result in a payment, but we do need everyone to sign up. So if you want to participate in ARC PLC this year, please, give the office a call in your county. Then we have the Dairy Margin Coverage Program that we call DMC, and that's another one where we're coming up on a deadline of March 25th for all the dairy producers that want to participate to go ahead and sign up. DMC issues payments when the margins between the cost of production and the cost of milk exceed the certain thresholds, and that just depends on the level of coverage. Luckily, again, this year, Governor Hogan through MDA has applied the funds to pay for the premiums for the highest level of coverage. And this just makes the program much more attractive to the dairy producers that work through FSA. So the majority of them that are, that participate with our agency did sign up, which is great. The other deadline I want to mention is for NAP, the Non-Insured Crop Disaster Assistance Program, and that's basically what I call our truck crop insurance. It covers a variety of things that aren't covered by traditional crop insurance, and the deadlines for that vary based on what the crop is, but the majority of our NAP crops have a March 15th deadline. Our other programs like farm storage facility loans, market assistant loans, that's all ongoing, but hopefully we don't need any of the ad hoc disaster programs anytime soon, but they're there if we need them. Now for CRP and Crep, the program that most or a lot of the people joining this call partner with us on. As usual, CRP has kept FSA and NRCS, MDA, the Soil Conservation Districts, keeps everybody busy. For the first time in a long time, the program has remained open for the entire year, and we haven't approached the acreage caps or had to wait for a new farm bill. This time, well, I guess it was June of last year, everything closed, and the new administration wanted to stop and evaluate everything, and so everything had to be redone when they came out with new soil rental rates and new incentives, and that was just bittersweet. So anyway, we're operating with business as usual mindset right now, and we're accepting offers. So that's that. We did just start a general CRP sign up, and we'll accept offers until March 11th. And then for CRP grasslands, we'll be accepting offers from April 4th until May 13th. And it's statute that we have the sign up for general CRP and grasslands through the end of the farm bill. So there'll be one more that we can count on next year. And then we'll see what the new farm bill after that brings. For re-enrollments this year, we have about 4,700 acres expiring. Last year was about 3,100. So shocker, there's a lot of re-enrollment workload. A lot like last year, the busiest offices will be Queen Anne's, Dorchester, Kent, Talbot, Caroline, and then Cecil and Worcester have a pretty decent amount too. So we have a lot of sizable workload there, but the supervisors of these offices have been working to, figure out how the work can get done and make sure that anyone who wants to re-enroll will have the ability. So I know the job will get done. It somehow always does. Then for new offers, there is a backlog in quite a few offices where people that want to participate in CRP but haven't had the chance due to the opening and closing of the program in prior years, and then just FSA being inundated with CFAP and other things last year. There's just a lot of demand, and there are a lot of other reasons that push people to certain offices like easement programs and things like that. So anyway, we're working to address those backlogs, and if someone wants to enroll, doing our best to go ahead and take good care of them and work them through the channels to see if their land is eligible and if they as a person are eligible. So we're trying to make sure that we make headway in those offices that have a lot of interested people. Overall, I think that's it for FSA. If you have any questions, let us know. I'll point you to our new executive director, John, or point you to the correct person in our agency. But as usual, thank you for including FSA and giving us a chance to talk as well.
Thank you, Laura. Any questions for Laura? Okay. MDA, is Hans on the phone or Byron? Or
yes,
both?
I am. Yes, I am.
Right.
I think we're both here. So good. First of all, I want to congratulate John on his new appointment. Looking forward to working with him as one of our, our conservation partners are important to meeting the needs of farmers and so forth. So I want to again welcome John in his new role. So Jen asked us to talk about a couple different things. One, our resource conservation strategic plan that we've come up with, and as well as the budget. And so we're gonna focus on the budget first because I think it'll kind of segue into the strategic plan. So I'm gonna actually turn it over to Byron. And Jen, I think you're gonna have to give Byron and myself says to put on PowerPoint.
Byron and yourself.
Yeah, I think you
Okay, I'll make both of you organizers and we'll see. And I think that'll work.
All right.
I was trying to figure out who I needed to do, but let's see if that works.
Yeah, Byron's going to go first with his, and then I'll go second.
Okay.
Byron?
All right, so let's see. It says ask the organizer. When do I know if I'll be able to share here?
Are you able to share your screen from the bottom? Or
It's still got a line through the computer down there.
I do too, but I think it's because I'm not sharing my screen. What happens if you click on it?
It just says to share your screen, ask the organizer to make you presenter. You want to make me a presenter, and then I could just advance the slides for Hans. You'll still be able to hear it, right? There we go.
Byron, you should now be a presenter.
Okay. How about that?
Yep.
All right, very good. And then there's only one slide at the end, I think, that Hans is going to talk from, so we can go from there. So everybody can see that okay?
I can see it. I don't know how clear the presentations are. I know for me, Mike Mason's chart was hard to read, but I was following along with what he was saying. So if we have any issues with that, if it's okay, we can share this out afterward if people are having a hard time seeing it. That is better. Whatever you did.
Okay, so I put the presentation as a just as a regular PowerPoint presentation. So okay, so we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's showing up nicely for me.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we'll start with numbers. So this is our governor's allowance for FY23 budget. And very similar to last year, we're pretty much flat funded. We might have some increases or decreases depending on salaries. But for the most part, operating is going to stay the same. We have two pots of money, just like previous. The reimbursable fund is the trust fund dollars. You see it's about $4.6 million we get from the trust fund. And then our general funds are, around $8.4 million. Overwhelmingly, most of our budget is in salaries. But then I wanted to just highlight the rest of these categories are mostly operating categories. I think this next year we're looking at purchasing or replacing 4 vehicles. So that'll be in that motor vehicles operations, and then the rest of that is gas and maintenance of those vehicles. But the one I wanted to point out, obviously, is the grants and subsidies. This is the money that we send out to the districts, either through our general fund MOUs or our trust fund agreements. And that helps fund things like, the cost share position of the administrative staff, the district and manager and the secretaries that are non-state. Also, cost share, we help with the per diems, things like that, support for the board of supervisor, and then obviously support for state employees like rent and operating, things like that. So what I want to touch on, I guess, is trust fund has not increased. So that's a finite pot of money for us. And as we're starting to hire, as we went through our hiring process, and now we're starting to hire those individuals, that what we're trying to manage around is that increase in salaries. So as some of you are aware, the state employees receive step increases and COLA increases that could be upwards of about 12% in the next couple years. In addition to that, we have increases each year, potentially what we do for non-competitive reclass, and that equates to about 12% increases each year for salary increases. So in essence, we're looking at 12 to 24% that adds into this salary bucket. And so as we're trying to manage that in the finite bucket of trust fund, we need to also manage the money that we're giving out for the cost share administrative. So that's our big kind of question mark right now of just planning for that and strategizing. We had a meeting about a week and a half ago with our fiscal services, just trying to kind of strategize of where do we go from here when trying to manage the trust fund. So our goal always is to align our cost share position support with like the managers and secretaries to the current salary schedule which would have those COLAs. But we just need to run the numbers here in the next month and make sure that we can absorb those increases as well in the trust fund. So that's kind of our big question mark with the budget going forward still. Just to the positions and how they lined up in the budget, I just want to have this slide and give you a sense of kind of the distribution in the Western Maryland counties. There's about 46 positions out in the districts. For the Patuxents, that's 28, and then the Eastern Shore is about 62. And what you see that we did this last year, we actually introduced entry-level positions into the planning series. That's your Ag Resource Conservation Specialist 1. And then we also introduced the Soil Conservation Associate 2. So one of our recruitments, our very last recruitment, was actually taking a step back and trying to recruit at the entry level, which we were successful. So we were very happy with that last recruitment. So that's where you kind of see, and then you see the progression as we go through that series. Just kind of let y'all see the kind of the mix of where our staff is throughout the state. Okay, so where we did end up for last year's recruitment, we did a total of 3 statewide recruitments, and we were successful in hiring 53 individuals. We have lost some of those. Some of those have, took the job, worked for a while, and then they've moved on. So we do have some other vacancies with that. But in essence, we were in 3 recruitments. We hired 53 conservation planners or technicians last year. And then going forward, what we're looking at for this next year, for FY22, what we're currently working on, this is kind of the distribution that we're going to be working on. And Hans will talk about some of these new positions that is a result of the strategic plan. And I'll point some of those out. These first 3, these 3 administrators, we're looking to hire an outreach coordinator that can assist RONA, and really the focus would be helping the districts out and a lot of their social media and just kind of those regular pamphlets and information that RONA has compiled over the years. We want to kind of take that over with this new position under district operations. We're also looking to, as things are really moving forward with the training and all this new staff, we feel it necessary to hire an administrator to help the area coordinators out, one on the Western Shore and one on the Eastern Shore. And then also wanted to point out, as we're moving forward with kind of new initiatives with the urban agriculture, we're looking to hire an urban planner, and hopefully, we haven't talked to the district yet, but hopefully house them in Prince George's. And then in addition to that, also increase our equine presence. We used to have equine planners and technicians that focused solely on equine in the central area. So we're looking to hire that position back in Hartford as an equine planner, but then also we're looking at potentially a technician, again, in Prince George's that would focus on equine and potentially urban agriculture in the smaller operations, I would call it, as things are improving there. So that's kind of what we're working on now. We've got 26, I think if you count them up, 26 vacancies we're working on. We're in the process now of reclassing, moving the pins around where we need them, but this is kind of our blueprint of where we see positions going, what type of positions. And like I said, we're working on that paperwork now with our Human Resources Department to make all the necessary changes. And we'll be hopefully soon, we'll start to see advertisements out there for these positions.
Byron, this is Steve Darcy, Prince George's. This is Steve Darcy with Prince George's. My chairman, Mr. Stewart, is here. We welcome the positions. We don't have a lot of room, but we'll figure it out, even if we have to add on to the building.
I appreciate that. And it brings up a good point. We are very taxed for new space in the current districts. pretty much we're at capacity, I think, at most of the districts. So as we're going through this and potentially adding additional positions, that is a concern for MDA, and I'm not sure. It may come up that we have to invest in just a separate facility and not be incorporated into the districts. But we were hopeful that, like you said, you could squeeze us in maybe in the basement. But that certainly, I appreciate the comment, and we'll certainly be in touch with you. But we recently kind of were all met, and this is our plan at least. And if it doesn't work out, we can't house them in certain districts because of space issues, then we'll take a step back and decide differently.
One other follow-up question, Byron. Are these two positions for Prince George's, are they area folks, or are they just for Prince George's? And it makes no difference to me. I'm just asking.
I envision more regional.
Region? Yes, gotcha.
And I think closely working with the DC as that program, with Baltimore City, Prince George's, and the urban, that's part of our thinking of housing them there close to, the new DC that might be focusing on that.
Well, and just for education of the group, we're also working with NACD to try to revitalize the district in Washington, D.C. And as you may or may not know, the district conservationist in Prince George's already acts also as the district conservationist for Washington, D.C. And the new position will be Prince George's, Washington, D.C. and Baltimore County. So this dovetails very nicely with conversations that I've had with Dr. Hilsman for being the urban ag hub for Washington, Baltimore, and Prince George's. But one thing I would like to bring up, especially you and Hans are here on the call, the rubber is getting ready to meet the road on this small pond approval. And we are fortunate in Prince George's to have 3 professional engineers. My counterparts in other counties are not so fortunate. I really think we need to consider putting 1 or 2 registered professional civil engineers in the Maryland headquarters to help with the district with small ponds and other reviews. I don't know if that's been discussed, but I think that would go really a long ways to help us out, because as of January, we're already 6 weeks past January, and I'm already getting calls asking if we could get our engineers to review other district pond plans. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, nor do we really have the time to do that. But the other question I have is, what are your are there long-term plans on discussions for phasing out gas-powered fleet at MDA? I sit on the greenhouse gas mitigation work group, and I don't know, there's lofty goals to be fossil fuel free by 2030 or 2040. So just some things to think about. Not to muddy the waters, but.
Well, I'll touch part of that. We've been talking quite a bit about an engineering need, and in the past, when we looked at in our current state system of what was needed and the compensation level, it didn't make sense for us. But I think it's still part of our conversation. And if we went down that path, I think what we would do, similar to these, is we would take just one of our current pins and reclassify it to, get approval to reclassify it to, and try to recruit for an engineer. But right, what you said, I think is a potential that would help the partnership. If we could add that engineering capacity, I think that would be helpful. As far as the electric vehicles, Hans can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's a goal for 25% of the state's fleet to be electric by, I'm not sure the date. We here at headquarters, I think, are receiving 3 electric, or we're in the process of putting up 3 charging stations. here at headquarters, and we've had discussions at the department about really, one of my concerns is the infrastructure. My fleet's out in, 23 counties, at the field offices. How do you, it doesn't make sense for them to come to headquarters to plug their vehicle in, and then take it back to a field office. So, as part of that goal, as we're discussing and we're sitting at the table with other agencies to discuss the state's goal of the 25%, that, the infrastructure is a big thing for us, when we're talking about field offices. So, but yes, there is a goal for us to move to that. I think for us, most of our vehicles and other programs here at MDA utilize trucks. So the ones that were available this last year was like the Mustang and another maybe small SUV or something, or a small car, and it didn't fit. So we don't have any now, but we do have some hybrids, but not the all electric. So I think as we get into this year, next year, and the trucks start coming out, you'll start seeing more here within MDA. All right, I'm going to shift.
This is Hartford. We have charging stations at our Ag Center for your information.
Well, maybe you'll be the first that we'll get. You'll be the first to get electric cars in. That's nice. I didn't realize that. That's good. Hans, you want to shift and
I
talk
just went in about 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
Byron mentioned, and Steve, you brought up about 25% going to electric. The Maryland Commission on Climate Change is really looking and delving deep into shifting towards more electrification of transportation, heating and cooling of buildings, and so forth. And the infrastructure is huge on the priority of the commission, and trying to meet, trying to mitigate and reduce our carbon footprint, our greenhouse gases, and so forth by 2030, 2040, 2050. Infrastructure is huge, and it's what it sounded like from what Lee said. Hartford sounds like they've already started, but we are having those discussions, and I'll lead a little bit into that when I get into the strategic plan, how we're going to, how we're going to try to move forward in this arena, because it's not just MDA, it's all state agencies, and for the private sector and so forth. But I'll get a little bit into that on the strategic plan. On this last slide, the conservation grants and so forth. So these funds are primarily, our max cost share, trust fund for cover crop, and bay restoration funds for cover crop. Our manure transports coming a little bit from general funds, from the poultry companies, and from the trust fund. And we also have an MOU with MDE for some funds there that are coming over for manure transport. There's Crp, and then there's grants to farmers. Most of these numbers haven't changed. That I will point out too, that I want to just touch base on. If you focus down on the last one, the grants to farmers, we put in there just 3 practices or 3 initiatives: the nutrient management, BMPs, animal waste technology funds, and PNT. But it's much more than that. Mike talked a little bit about the Climate Solutions Now Act, and actually that legislation was discussed last year. And one of the carve-outs out of that bill from last year was the Tree Solutions Now Act. That legislation went on and passed. And what is out of that is there is a requirement to plant and grow 5 million additional trees in Maryland by 2030. So MDA, DNR, and the Chesapeake Bay Trust are implementing this program to put more trees on the ground and get them growing. Where MDA is so far, what the legislation has is basically dictated to us is $1,000 signing bonuses for the forested buffer through the Crp program. So there is language in that bill for other tree planting initiatives. We have not figured that out yet, but at this point, there's a couple $1 million in that for that initiative. We've talked a lot, and Mike brought up a lot about urban ag, and we've heard about this through various different folks who were talking about it. That initiative. So we've carved out a little bit of funds for urban ag projects, ag drainage management pilot, and so forth. I will also focus on at the top on the capital. And as you probably have noticed, if you've been in soil conservation for a number of years, $2 million, a little less than what we've been granted in years past. But if you remember back in I guess it was 2016, Max was those funds, those bond funds were carved out, and there was no funding that year, and so we were working on carryover for that next fiscal year. Since then, those over the past, since those years, each year the governor has put in between $5 and $8.5 million for the Max program, and there's been a little bit of a buildup, and so the $2 million is would be new bonds, but we have plenty of carryover money that we'll be able to dip in, and we want to work those funds down. So we feel very comfortable with this budget number, and we just encourage again farmers in the districts to get in and get farmers signed up to apply for max cost share program. We've made some changes to that program over the last couple of years with the going to 100% cost share for certain practices. We've just recently adjusted our flat rates, and so we shouldn't be any hesitation or concerns. We feel very comfortable with where these numbers are. So, and as you can see, cover crop is highly 25 and almost $25.5 million for cover crop. That's coming out of trust fund and bay restoration fund, and we've been being able to utilize those, been able to meet our needs, and being able to adjust the program as throughout these years, and trying to tweak the program again to meeting the objectives and the needs of the farmers. And I'm going to get a little bit more into that when I get more into the strategic plan. So unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to try, if I'm technically savvy, to go to another PowerPoint.
Let me set you as a presenter in case you are not. You already did? Okay, super.
So I hit the share button, is that right?
The screen at the bottom.
The screen at the bottom, gotcha.
In there.
You see it?
I see it. I think I also see your GoToMeeting screen. I think it'll work though.
Hold on a second. It's not showing up right.
I mean, it was showing up. I just don't know if there's going to be any issue with your GoToMeeting screen covering up any of the. Oh, I think.
Hold on.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just not today.
Just fine. Corey, quit going. Bye.
So while Byron is fooling with that, let me just start off here with a couple things. So as you've heard through the discussions, and I think it could probably feel maybe a little overwhelming with all the new initiatives, and not so much new initiatives, but a lot of the discussions that we've been hearing over time. Urban ag has been big, environmental justice, and some of these new things, we were kind of
for the schools.
We were looking at a kind of a hodgepodge, and it was important to really put together a roadmap that can really give us some direction in moving us forward. And so, as Byron went through, the vacancies and so forth, looking at what we had and putting together this strategic plan, which was important, and then looking at what our resources are, particularly from a staffing standpoint, and doing some reclassing and so forth to help meet some of these initiatives. He mentioned Equine, and Equine, as many of you know, there's more horses per square mile in Maryland than any state in the country. And so there's huge needs within the equine. Those of you who work on the equine side, there's huge needs from a conservation standpoint. And so we want to make sure that we are providing those resources to those farmers and to those landowners. I think it's also important to note that as we are developing new programs or even looking at our current programs and making tweaks, that our programs really need to meet the needs of the farmers and meet the capacity of the farmers. It shouldn't be the other way around. And so what we're trying to do is making sure, and we're doing a lot of focus within the MAX program or Conservation Grants program, of making sure that the programs that we have and the cost share assistance that we're providing meet those needs of the farmers. It's not so much bureaucratic or a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork. We're trying to minimize that, but we need to also understand that these funds that we are getting, the MOUs that the agency has with these various different funding groups, that we need to meet their objectives as well. So we want to make sure that, again, we've got programs and funding sources that are going to meet the objectives of the farmers and so forth. And we also want to make sure that it's workable within the sole conservation districts, within the staff, that it's not too cumbersome. And I think we could all argue, we're not there, or, hopefully you're thinking maybe we're getting there, and there's still a lot more to do. But everything's evolving. We're dealing a lot with climate change, another big initiative, which we're trying to address within the strategic plan. And so a lot of new things. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming, but hopefully we set out a plan that will hopefully minimize that and try to get it in the right direction. So we developed this strategic plan. Hopefully, I think we sent it all out to the districts a couple of weeks ago for your review. And so we wanted to present it today. I'm going to briefly go through it so you all have an opportunity to look at it. And then, if you have any questions, please ask. So I'm going to go briefly through the various different priorities and so forth. But again, as we're experiencing more extreme weather patterns and saltwater intrusion and increased flooding, we need to make sure that, within our programs that we are addressing climate change. We recognize too that a lot of the practices that we're putting on the ground have benefits, not just for water quality, but to mitigate against, with climate change. And so we want to make sure that we are addressing. I think agriculture is much further ahead than other industries. And we often say that agriculture can be part of the solution. So we want to make sure that as farmers are implementing new practices and trying to take some of the risk off the table for them, that we've got programs here that are going to help them. So again, this is a roadmap for trying to move Maryland's agricultural conservation programs forward. But we also want to recognize that we have three key priorities. and that is Chesapeake Bay restoration. That hasn't changed. Climate resiliency, which I just talked a little bit about, and then environmental justice. And I think at the MASCD meeting that we had this past summer, somebody asked the question, well, what is environmental justice? Well, it's making sure that we are providing equal access to all our conservation programs and services for all. We talked, again, a lot about urban ag. Well, a lot of those folks are folks that have not qualified for our conservation grants program or our max program. And so we need to be able to come up with programs and initiatives to help those individuals meet and be able to provide them both the technical and financial assistance that they may need. Now, that may look very different in that arena versus what we're doing for the larger ag sector, but there is a need there. We're hearing it loud and clear. We're hearing it from NGOs. The legislature is hearing it from NGOs, and we're hearing it from the legislature. And as Mike was talking, I mean, there's a number of climate bills and environmental justice bills out there that we need to make sure that we're addressing where those needs are. So we want to make sure that our mission is that we're providing services to all farmers, again, with the technology, expertise, and financial resources needed to protect and conserve natural resources that we all demand. Our core values haven't changed. We're committed to agriculture. We're committed to making sure that agriculture is profitable. We do recognize that Maryland farmers are under a microscope, and more than farmers, our neighboring farmers, more than farmers across the state or across the country. And we want to make sure that we can provide the resources to, again, minimize the risk or the financial risk that they may be taking because they're trying to meet some of these environmental initiatives and needs. Our integrity, we want to make sure that our integrity is top notch. We want to make sure our programs are science-based. Again, environmental justice is important, that we're meeting the needs of all, and that we have a collaborative effort. It's the partnership. And as Lee and Frank and Steve and everyone else and Cal and everybody else who's been involved with NACD, I think we've all can recognize that Maryland is unique in the partnership that we have, much different than other states in the country. And I think there's a little envy there that what we do have. And so we want to make sure that collaborative effort, collaboration, the partnership continues to work. And I'm going to, at the end, when I get past this strategic plan, I just want to talk briefly on the partnership. So as we were developing and working on these strategic priorities, we had to look at within each of our programs and look and see, what changes and how we meeting these objectives and so forth. So I'm going to go through each one of them, each of these priorities. Some are new, some are restructured, and some may appear that there's not a lot of change, but there really is, and there's more change to come that's beyond what the strategic plan really shows. So strategic priority number one is addressing climate resilience and environmental justice. So the Maryland Commission on Climate Change has made it a top priority to look at climate change, to look at how we as a state can help mitigate and adapt to climate change. We see it, and I've heard from many of the farmers, particularly on the Eastern Shore, that have farms that border along the Chesapeake Bay and tributaries where saltwater intrusion is impacting their farming operations. We want to make sure that, those communities that are being impacted, that we are providing some assistance. I've been involved with, let me back up. That last year there was legislation, or not legislation, but there was a directive to put together a vulnerability assessment report on the impacts of climate change to agriculture. And what we were required to do was put a report together to identify what the needs are to do the assessment. So we've been working very closely with the Hughes Center, DNR, MDE, and a couple other groups, USDA's Climate Hub, to put together a report that'll be presented to the legislature. And actually, the report was just submitted, I think, Monday or Tuesday of this week, that the legislature will be reviewing. Many of you may have participated in some work group sessions that we had last year to hear from the farmers how climate change is impacting their farming operations, and so that we have a better understanding of what the needs are. So we put this report together. It's been submitted. We're hoping that there's going to be some funding that's going to be provided to take it to the next step. It'll be a 2-year process of doing this assessment. But what's interesting is that it's trying to think of the term now. But the report is a live report where, we're not going to wait for 2 years to hear what the results are to start addressing these climate, initiatives and needs and what the resources are that we're going to be working on ongoing as the report is and the assessment is being done. Strategic priority number 2, the nutrient management program. And to meet our WIP goals, to meet some of our, our climate change goals, really circles around nutrient management and nutrient management compliance. And so in looking at how that program is structured, we're not looking at a lot of major changes. What we are looking at is bringing in at least another inspector, another reviewer to help assist our field folks. These folks are doing a lot more than just going out and inspecting farms and doing reviews. They're working a lot on reviewing the AIR. They're going out on complaints. They are, get involved with, we've got in one case, we've got a court case, they get involved with that. So they are involved in a lot of different initiatives. And so we've got, I think, 9 inspectors out in the field. We're going to be adding 1 more in the near future. But in looking at the strategic plan, as I said earlier, we want to make sure that our programs work around the needs of the farmers and the capacity of the farmers. And so what we're going to be looking at doing is putting together a nutrient management advisory committee that is farmer only, and working with that group to help us, giving us guidance as legislation is being passed, and helping us to address, how we're going to address these needs, how do we address the laws, what are some of the changes we need to have more impact or input from the farmers. So we're going to be working on that. Last year, I think it was last year, the year before, we provided some grant funds for districts to go out and purchase litter spreaders to be able to lease out to farmers who don't have the equipment. I know one district, Queen Anne's, took advantage of that. But we want to look at what are some of the other needs. There's a lot of precision ag, and we want to make sure that farmers are taking advantage of these new technologies, that it fits within the program. And we're going to have these further discussions with the university, because it's the university's recommendations that are incorporated into writing nutrient management plans. And it's that collaboration between the farmers, the nutrient management plan writers, the agency, and the University of Maryland, and making sure that program works for the farmers. We're looking at some other equipment possibilities out there, some grant funds to help, for companies that want to get more into precision grid sampling and so forth. And so we are open to, hearing, some, suggestions and so forth, and how, if there's some needs out there to help incorporate some of these take precision agriculture to the next level. So the next, turf nutrient management, again, trying to make sure that we're trying to build on compliance. That's a big thing with the legislature. They want to know where compliance is on all, both farming and turf management, where compliance fits. We want to make sure again that we're meeting the environmental justice principles, and again, open to any changes that are needed to help this this program move forward. Our third priority is our conservation grants, and this program is probably seeing the biggest changes. And I'm happy to say that Jason Kepler is now the full-time program manager for conservation grants. He's no longer in an acting capacity, and I appreciate everything Jason has done over this last, I guess it's been about the last 9 months in filling in that acting capacity. A lot of changes has come within this program, and again, we want to make sure that the program and the services that we're providing meet the needs of the farmers, meet the needs of the districts, trying to minimize, paperwork. We're trying to incorporate more streamlined programs. I think you saw it within the last couple of years when it came to the spot inspections for cover crops in the spring, utilizing satellite imagery to help, be more efficient in hopefully reducing the number of times a district would have to go out and inspect the farm, so the district staff can really focus on some of the, designing and writing conservation plans and so forth. And within the conservation grants program, we have split the some of those duties up to sorry, I had a piece of paper here that kind of spelled out, but trying to split up some of those duties of staff, and so giving, making sure that district staff know who to contact within the conservation grants program, and I'll go through them pretty quickly here. For our MAX program, our agricultural water quality cost share, that's going to be Thomas. I always get Thomas's last name messed up. It's Bagamsha. And Thomas has been with the agency for some time and has a wealth of knowledge in working in that program. And Thomas will be he's in that capacity as the administrator for that program. Dawn Bradley will continue to serve as our administrator for our cover crop program. And I think, and I'll talk briefly, our Healthy Soil Advisory Committee just sent over to the secretary some recommendations for a healthy soil program, and within those recommendations, what we call a cover crop plus program. And so we're going to be working with Dawn and her team and the cover crop tax committee to working on are there some things within our traditional cover crop program that we can, incorporate, to kind of broaden that program. But we're also within the Cover Crop Plus program, and also another one of the initiatives that are coming out of that program, looking at trying to put together programs to help, again, those individuals that have not met the qualifications for our MAX program. So again, trying to broaden the scope, trying to make sure that our services that we provide, both on a financial and technical side, try to meet those demands. Our ecosystem incentive program, the administrator is Saiping So. As many of you, all of you know, Saiping is our manure transport coordinator, and Saiping will continue to do that until we can fill a position for the manure transport. But Saiping will be shifting over to ecosystem incentive program, which is our Maryland income tax subtraction modification for conservation equipment, our LILAC program, or our low interest loans for agricultural conservation, and then our conservation reserve or CRP program. So looking forward to how those programs will evolve beyond where we are right now. And then lastly, again, urban agricultural and small farm, Bill Tharp will be our administrator for that, and Bill has a huge task ahead of him. We've already started those conversations in Baltimore City with some legislators on what the needs are in those areas and how we as an agency, how we can develop and incorporate programs that are going to meet their needs. And so we've already been up and visited Baltimore a couple times, but it's not just about Baltimore. It's going to be some other areas that, across the state where we're going to have to meet those needs. So our next priority, as Byron mentioned, district operations. Byron went over some of those, reclassifying some of our staff, trying to help again on the urban side, on our equine side, and was asked about the question whether these staff are more, for the districts or more regional. I think we're looking at, we want to make sure, because we have limited staff, that we can provide, in a lot of cases, more of a regional approach to helping meet those needs, broader. I think that's the best way that in the most efficient way, we can do that. And as these programs grow, then hopefully we will build on the staff capacity to help meet those needs. And as Byron said, an outreach coordinator to help Rona in developing outreach to the districts, putting out, what our programs are and trying to assist in that area. And so we're trying to work through that, trying to get that position, get the paperwork over to HR, and trying to get that moving on over as quickly as possible. Our next priority is a new name. It's Program Planning and Evaluation. Alicia Malky is program manager for this program. It was previously called Program Planning and Development. And as I said, it's changed, and it's changed because we've merged the WIP program into this program. And so some of the duties that were under this program that Alicia oversaw, which was the Ecosystem Incentive Program and PrEP, as I said, and then also have been shifted down to conservation grants. And then in turn, this program is taking on the WIP. Elizabeth Hoffman is going to be supervising the verification team out in the fields. And Elizabeth is also working on, and she has been, so it's nothing really new, but pulling in that WIP, those accreditations or those credits to meeting our WIP goals. And so I think it just works very well with, as Alicia's team is developing new programs and also looking at on the end result how those programs are developing, how we're meeting our goals and so forth. So next priority, state committee, state soil conservation committee. Not a lot of changes, but as I said earlier, for those of you who have been involved with MASCD, Maryland we have a reputation of a national leader in environmental stewardship, and we want to continue that way. And so this committee we see is, still working on and trying to work to develop the resources that the districts need. I know Jen and Alicia and Byron have been working really hard on the training of new staff. And we want to hear through this committee, recommendations again on how we can improve, our programs. A lot of the new programs, particularly through the MAX program, as we've incorporated some new practices in our program. We've run them through the state committee to make sure that we've gotten their concurrence before we send them over to the secretary for his approval. So we still see that as a vital role. And we're also working, state committee is also working with the Attorney General's office on some of the new laws on establishing a new soil conservation district, particularly in Baltimore City. And I think Mike talked a little bit about that earlier. And then our last strategic plan is outreach and education. Rona Flegel has been doing an outstanding job in this area, and we want to make sure, and we're trying to get, for getting some assistance for her to help broaden that outreach, to get the education out, not just to the districts, but to our farmers, through our campaign, through like our manure transport programs, working through University of Maryland's Master Gardeners program with fact sheets and so forth, so that they have resources to work with, making sure that we're educating our lawn care professionals, that they're not going to be over applying, nutrients and so forth. So really trying to, and then also trying to get education out and displays out to like our county fairs and our ag conferences, and, soil health conference that just went on this past week, and various different meetings and conventions and so forth. So this strategic plan really is to help give us kind of again a roadmap of trying to move forward, and hopefully, and I think, and I've had some discussions with Dr. Hillsman and Rob McAfee, trying to, these programs kind of tailor into a lot of what some of the initiatives that are coming down from the federal government. We're looking at some of these funding pots, and Rob and I have had a number of discussions on that, of what are some opportunities there that we can take advantage of to help, again, implement these programs and get the money out to the farmers. So, so hopefully, I think this, again, this is going to be what is needed. We were kind of, there was a lot going on, and we really need to get something down on paper. So I'm going to break away from this unless anybody has any questions. And just talk briefly, just here for a second on just one last thing. The partnership, and we've all been challenged with COVID, and I always hate using the excuse for COVID. And we've been in it for 2 years now, and we've all, I think, done a great job on adapting to it and being able to utilize some of the new technology or technology that's available to help make our jobs hopefully a little more easier, and also trying to protect ourselves, protect our families, and so forth. But with all these new initiatives, it is going to be important and vitally important that we have clear communication amongst all of us. And from top to bottom, bottom to top, that needs to take place. It needs to take place with myself and Rob and John and all the conservation leadership teams, of making sure that we all understand what the priorities of each of the agencies are, and so forth, and Jen as well. Sorry, Jen. But that we're all working together, that we're meeting the objectives of each one of our needs and so forth, but that we're working together. It's vitally important at the local level that the district manager and the district conservation are working together to making sure that we know what the objectives of and the needs are for each of the programs, but that we're working together. We all have different resources that we can provide to the team, and we want to make sure that we are providing those needed resources to the farmers, because that's the ultimate goal, is providing the needs to the farmers to make sure that we are meeting their needs. Sure, we can say that we're trying to meet our WIP goals, and MBA has been famous about saying we need to meet the WIP goals. Well, let's meet the needs of the farmers and tailor the programs around to meet, not only meeting the needs of the farmers, but we're also meeting the needs of meeting our WIP objectives. The goals haven't changed. In fact, if anything, the goals have actually increased because of some of the discussions around Conowingo, climate change, and so forth. So we need to actually do more with what we have. And so, as we put this strategic plan together, we didn't get new pins or anything. We just took with what we had and kind of massaged it around to meeting the needs, meeting those needs with what we have. Again, trying to meet the needs and the capacity of the farmers with the programs, not work around the programs. So, the conservation leadership team meets on a monthly basis, and we talk about these things. And we want to just make sure that that we're meeting those needs at the local level. That with the communication that the district manager and the conservation DCs in each of the districts are having clear communication, that they're meeting on a regular basis, that they're strategizing how to meet those needs. I encourage our area coordinators to be involved with those discussions too, because if there's something missing at the local level, what can we do to provide help the districts move things along in meeting those objectives. So, Bruce, I think that's all. I've talked enough. I don't know. I may have gone over time, but unless anybody has any questions, I think that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Hans. Any questions for Hans or Byron? Okay, thanks
Hans,
again.
Hans,
Somebody-
this is Lee. Do you have a time frame for your strategic plan?
It's already started taking effect, Lee. So we've already started making some changes. We've already made quite a few changes within the conservation grant. So we've already identified and put those individuals in those administrator roles. One thing I forgot to say, darn it, on the climate, on the first priority on the climate solution or climate position, environmental justice, we are in the process of hiring an individual to work with the agency, be a point person that'll be working with the various different climate change work groups, commission work groups, and hopefully we will have somebody on board in the very near future. I'm working through that paperwork right now. We're also working, and it's a little outside our specific strategic plan, but we're in the process right now of hiring someone to work with our emergency management plan here for the agency and our new database system, which will help us, make things more efficient within the agency and so forth. So we're resource conservation is really working with all the programs here within the department. But the strategic plan has already started to take place. Oh, and one other quick thing, Bruce, I'm sorry. For the March meeting or the next board meeting here, I would like to take a little time to talk about WIP strategies. As I said, our goals haven't changed. If anything, they may have gone up a little bit. I want to talk a little bit, bring in Elizabeth and project team here to talk about where we are, and because 2025 will be here pretty quickly, and we've been given some new pins, and we've been working hard to try to fill those positions, and with these new objectives and these new initiatives and priorities that we're working on, we just want to kind of talk a little bit about WIP and where we're at and moving forward. So.
Okay, sounds good. If there are no other questions for MDA, we'll go to State Soil Conservation Committee with Alicia and Van.
Good morning, this is Van. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Van.
All right, thank you. So again, good morning, everyone. I guess I'll start by echoing the congratulations to John Sullivan on his new position with FSA. John's been a member of the State Soil Conservation Committee representing MDE for quite some time, so we are glad to see him continue just in a new capacity. Since our last report here, the committee has made 5 appointments to local SCD boards since November. Our next meeting will be next week on February 17th, and there will be a new face representing the Ag Commission at the meeting. John Murphy, who represents the nursery sector, will be joining the committee, so we look forward to welcoming him next week. Our agenda for next week's meeting will include presentations from MDE on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act plan. We will hear from MDA on the Healthy Soils program. And lastly, a legal overview on carbon credit markets. So if you have the opportunity, please join us next week for the State Soil Conservation Committee meeting. It is virtually still, so if you need login information, feel free to reach out to Alicia or myself, and we can make sure you have that information to log in. Last month, the committee adopted our work plan for 2022. A few of the upcoming topics are solar facilities on ag land in March, and an update on the Phase 3 WIP and the Conowingo WIP in April. So, as you know, a lot of these topics are, as we heard from Hans, are topics that are on the forefront of everyone's reason for making decisions on what districts do and how they do it. So please join us for those. As you have all heard in the past, Alicia and Byron will be providing sexual harassment prevention training over the next couple of months. Thank you to everyone who has registered so far. We still have a few board members who have not responded, so please encourage all of your board members to reach out to Alicia and encourage them to attend one of the trainings. I can't stress again how much I think the importance of this is for all of us at the local levels to go to these trainings. I think we all kind of assume we all know it all and it's common sense, but I think what you find when you sit into these trainings, there's things we don't know and there's things we can learn. So again, please just advise your board members to attend and schedule that with Alicia. The upcoming dates, I want to mention them. So the first will be on February 22nd for the sexual harassment training. It is the 22nd will be at the Baltimore Soil Conservation District in Cockeysville. The next one will be on February 24th in the Caroline Soil Conservation District in Denton. Also on the 24th of February, there will be a training at the Kent County Extension Service in Chestertown, followed by a training provided on February 28th at the Charles Soil Conservation District in Waldorf. And then beginning in March 1st, there are two trainings to be provided. The first one in the morning will be at Washington County Ag Education Center in Boonesboro. And the second will be that afternoon at the Montgomery Soil Conservation District in Durwood. Following that, there are two trainings left in March. March 2nd will be at the Somerset Soil Conservation District in Princess Anne. And then the last will be March 22nd at South Cumberland Library in Cumberland. So these trainings have been set up all across the state to try to give everyone the opportunity for easy access. So please, again, just disseminate to your district board members and encourage them to attend. That is all I have for this morning. Alicia, I think you're online. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, Van, thanks. You did a great job.
All right, that is it from the State Soil Conservation Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Van. I'll just mirror what Van said about the sexual harassment training. Can't urge enough how much we need to make sure we attend one of these trainings. University of Maryland Extension, Darren Jarbo, are you on, Darren?
Thanks, Bruce. Can you hear me okay? I'm out in the park,
sure.
So
We're fine.
to be sure. And Jen, I'll send you my notes when I get back home this evening. The University of Maryland started in-person classes on January 24th, and our extension programs, we are holding in-person meetings. We also have virtual offerings as well, so that people can get their continuing education credits either in person or virtually. we are following certain guidelines, and a big part of that is the local health department recommendations, as well as extensions guidelines that we developed for offering in-person meetings. Our winter meeting season has gotten started. Actually, we're probably 2/3 of the way through it now. And we've had really good attendance at meetings. People are excited to get together and have the trainings. We, as I said, we're having the asynchronous programs, or the online programs, in pretty much all the areas: agronomy, forage, landscape and nursery, pest management, urban farming, fruits and vegetables. So it's across the board if somebody's interested. Annie's project class will start February 16th, and that'll run for 6 Wednesday evenings if folks are interested in that. On December 15th, the College of Ag hosted House Committee congressional staff, and they came to campus, as well as went to the Y Research and Education Center. We gave them a quick overview of some of the technology that's going on, and some of the ways that we're working on the not only climate, but also the nutrient management side of the equation. So Sarah Hirsch had an exhibit with a rainfall simulator so that they could see what happens with erosion and management of the water and that kind of thing. University of Maryland Eastern Shore collaborated with us on that event. We've been very fortunate at least in the first couple of episodes of Maryland Farm and Harvest, that we've had faculty featured in that program, and we really appreciate that. Kurt Vollmer got to talk about his weed management research program. Shannon Dill was interviewed about the Plein Air Easton event last summer, and then Stanton Gill gave a tour of his farm, Falcon Ridge Farm. It's a horticulture farm, and got to talk about some of the technology and things that he works with. So that was just a great situation where we could get in front of a lot of people, and a number of you fund that. So I just wanted to let you know how much we appreciated that. Lead Maryland has selected 25 fellows from across Maryland for class 12, and they did get started up at the Claggett Farm in Adamstown a couple weeks ago. One of the things that we see out of that class is people advance after they've been through the class. And so John Sullivan actually is a lead alumnus, and we do quite a bit of work with John. So I was glad to see that he is doing well. And we have 2 ag and food systems faculty who have left, one on international programming, and then the educator up in Frederick. And Manami Brown has retired up in Baltimore. And I see I'm getting a battery low signal all of a sudden here, so I may drop off. We are going to be hiring in Kent County and Frederick County coming up. And then last but not least, we do have a new grant on working with urban farmers and beginning farmers from USDA NIFA for almost $400,000, and Neith Little is leading that. That's all I have, Bruce. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Any questions for Darren? Okay, NACD, Frank, you're up.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce. Can you hear me?
Hear you just fine.
Okay, good. I'm going to drop back to 2021 last fall when we had our NACD Northeast meeting, which was held up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, October 31st through November the 3rd. It was a combined meeting between New Hampshire Soil Conservation Districts and the NACD Northeast members. This is the same way that we plan on doing it in Cambridge for at the beginning of September 2022. The meeting's top topics were: one, coastal storms and the rising sea levels, and two, biochar, which I found very interesting. And I'll hit on a few buttons on that, a few bullets. It's char produced specifically for the application to soil for agronomic or environmental management, and USDA's working with this and doing tests with it. The biochar increases soil organic matter, soil aggregate stability, improves habitat for soil organisms, improves plant productivity, and improves moisture management. And a few ways that it's applied by broadcast work and then worked into the soil: trenching, top dressing, banding and side dressing, liquid injection, drip tape, that probably is a greenhouse situation, and subsurface application. The environmental benefits of it were used for methane and ammonia mitigation for swine, dairy, and chicken operations, which we certainly have some of those. But it also reduces nitrogen leaching, but unfortunately they have mixed effects on the phosphorus. So the other topic I want to talk about is the grants that have gone out. We on the district operation grants for 2022, there are 8 grants of $2,500 each. We had $20,000 from the Friends of the NACD. There were 35 applicants, and most of this money goes to rural soil conservation districts who are in need of it. The other grant is the urban and community grant for 2022. There were 8 grants at $50,000 each. I don't know how many applicants. I didn't write that down. You know, we've heard a lot today talk about the urban programs and stuff. So maybe once we get back to face-to-face, we can talk about maybe a workshop or something in Maryland to see how we go about applying for some of these grants. Just the thought that crossed my mind. The winter meeting for NACD is being held at Orlando, Florida, February 12th through the 16th. Now, it's basically a face-to-face, but it's there will be conference calls on for the committees I'm on, which is the Urban and Community Committee and the District Operations. And I also a conference or maybe even a Zoom call on the NACD Northeast. So I'm not planning on going to the meeting. I'm planning on working, going to these or listening to these meetings. The COVID cases, January were like 30,000 new cases a day in Florida. Now it's down to about 20,000 per day. But I have a situation with a inherited kidney disease, and I just didn't feel comfortable with that. So anyway, that's all I have, Bruce. If there's any questions, or hey, I'll be glad.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Any questions for Frank on NACD? Okay, moving on. Rob McAfee with NRCS.
Hello there, Bruce. Just checking. You can hear me all right?
Loud and clear.
All right, very good. I'll even slow it down a little bit. I'm getting excited. I've gotten very excited as I listened to the prior presentations and how well things are going here in across the Maryland Partnership. But let me first introduce myself. Rob McAfee, acting state conservationist for Maryland. You guys know me from my traditional role as the assistant state conservationist for field operations. When I was Dr. Hillsman reached out to me in early January and said, "Hey Rob, we're going to need you to cover the acting spot for us again, the acting state conservationist spot, because I'm going to be going down to national headquarters." And I said to Taryn, "Well, that's not a problem. I've been in the spot before. We got a strong team here in Maryland, and happy to fill in until you get back." And that's when he kind of gave me the yeah about that, Rob. I'm actually not going to be coming back to Maryland. He has accepted a permanent job in national headquarters as the new director of the Ecological Sciences Division. So we're very sad to see Dr. Hillsman moving on to a different position, but he's going to be extremely influential in his new role. And again, we got a strong enough partnership here that really doesn't matter who sits in this chair. We got a real good thing going on here in Maryland. We will be organizing a send-off event, since everything happened fairly quickly. We will be having a congratulatory event for Dr. Hillsman and appreciation for his work that he's done here. That'll be announced and disseminated to this group once we get it scheduled. One nice thing, one beneficial thing about sitting in this acting role is you do get to peer across the fence at your neighbors at the other NRCS states more often, kind of hear what's going on in other areas. And as it's been alluded to, we got a really good thing going on here. And, I hear a fair amount of belly aching about the state of the partnership in certain states, or it's not strong, it's not financed well enough, all that just kind of belly aching. And it leaves me with the thought of, well, it sucks to be you, because that's not what we have going on in Maryland. We've got a partnership that organized and funded a conference this week that attracted world-class speakers and speakers that were disseminating world-class research that was coming out of our local universities. On top of that, we've got extremely strong and active resource conservation and development districts. We've got a farm bureau that's very active with our farmers. Just recently brought a national award, the Leopold Award, here to Maryland to make sure our farmers are getting the recognition they deserve. And we've got a Maryland Department of Agriculture that is always an extremely strong partnership. And then they come out with a strategic plan that's forward-looking and extremely well aligned with where NRCS is headed as well. So things are going really well, and we got a really strong partnership going on here. I am going to move into a few priorities that are coming out of the direction that we're getting from our chief. Genevieve's going to, I believe, advance in the slide here, and I've only got, I think, about 2 slides, so don't get too worried, guys. So here are 3 priorities, and first let me just touch on that concept as well. Priorities means we need to put a little additional energy into something. It doesn't mean we need to stop doing other things. So our current focus is on water quality, conservation planning, conservation programs, EQIP. Those are all still chugging along. Don't get me wrong; these aren't superseding those priorities. This is just some additional energy, additional emphasis in these areas. So as you see them up here, urban agriculture, equity and diversity, climate smart agriculture. These are probably sounding real familiar from the presentation you saw from Hans, and that's a very, very good thing. So as we're thinking about these new priorities, what are we going to do? What are we going to do different? And I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to continue to work with our partnership like we've been doing right along on any other initiatives that come down from above. And let me get into that a little bit deeper. Urban agriculture. So what are we doing? We are making a little realignment here at NRCS to really create some additional specialization. We took the vacancy that was created by Heisha Cadero, getting promoted up to the state office as our new Assistant State Conservationist for Programs. She vacated the Prince George's County District Conservationist, and we took a look at how we could kind of better align our resources towards urban agriculture, and we really did a restructuring of that area to focus on that I-95 corridor, where we have some of our heaviest concentrations of urban ag needs. So that new district conservationist is going to be located out of Prince George's, serve Prince George's County with the staff that she will have there, but then also focus on Washington, D.C. and Baltimore City. And that's going to create kind of specialization and efficiencies that we can transfer to any of the other urban centers or urban needs around the state. So that's a little tweak that we're doing within NRCS. But back to the partnership, we're working very closely with the University of Maryland Extension on we did a farmer field school, and my hat's off to Neith Little. Just a phenomenal job that she's doing up in Baltimore City. And again, those are successes that are influencing the decisions that are being made at NRCS, at MDA, really the way you guys have set the groundwork in our services towards urban agriculture. I'd be missing if I didn't also tip my hat to the Prince George's District and really their forward-looking approach to urban agriculture right from the start. Let's see, anything else on urban ag? Oh, here's another a nice one that NRCS can contribute to this situation, and that is with our practice scenarios and our payment schedules. So, those are traditionally been focused on larger scale agriculture, and this year is the first time where we pivoted those scenarios down to smaller scale agriculture. So just the simple example would be, rather than thinking on acreage scales, we now have those down to the square foot scales. So those will be applying in our urban settings this year. All righty. Let's see. Got a couple notes here. All right, we'll keep rolling. Equity and diversity. Let me just kind of talk about that one for a minute. That's both, to serving our customers, but then also within our own workforce. We've been doing a very good job at this at NRCS Maryland and across the partnership. So I don't want anyone to think we're tipping this thing on its head, but there's always room for improvement. So we want to make sure that we're reaching all the customers that we possibly can. And we're doing that largely through partnerships. Again, Chesapeake Bay Foundation recently received a large national agreement to help with outreach. We have also supported the University of Maryland Extension in their program called Cultivating Conservation, where they're reaching out to beginning in historically underserved farmers. And on top of that, we have a huge opportunity here with our universities when it comes to recruiting new talent. And we're working with the Maryland Civil Rights Committee, which our partners serve on as well, and just really look and re-examining how we go about our recruitment efforts and bringing that all the way down to the classroom level. As we look at the hiring opportunities, and there's certainly more coming, we want to make sure that we're recruiting a talented and diverse group of individuals. So that's still in the planning phase, but there's quite a bit to come on that. Let's see here. Oh, and I also want to point out on the national scale, fairly recently it was announced that the Secretary of Agriculture, Vilsack, he has a committee for urban agriculture, basically a listening committee directly reporting to the secretary. And we've got a local individual from the University of Maryland. His name's John Evans. That'll be serving on that urban agriculture advisory committee to the secretary. Just one more excellent opportunity. Let's see here. Climate. Bullet point number 3 here. They're just rolled out. There's a really interesting but hot off the press opportunity coming on climate. The Secretary of Agriculture did a presentation out in Missouri just this last Monday. They're having briefings this week, and there's another one this afternoon I'll be participating on a new program called the Partnership for Climate Smart Commodities. And I think the best way I can introduce this and brief it is really based on the title. It's a partnership. This is a very large amount of money. We're talking $1 billion worth of funding is now available for partners to apply for grants, and the grants need to address commodity production and climate. So we're talking most likely carbon sequestration, practices that sequester carbon associated with commodity production. That's extremely broad, but I think that's intentional. We will provide the link for any partner, and I highly encourage any partner to really dig into this opportunity. It's open now. You can download the materials, see if it's the right fit. But this is a large amount of money. We're talking proposals that are going to get funded at $250,000 to $100 million level. There's also a component as well where this is also supposed to be targeted towards beginning limited resource, historically underserved producers. I don't know to what extent that's exclusive to just those segments, but again, it's a brand new opportunity, and in all that we do, we should be taking that into consideration anyways. Genevieve, thank you much for posting up the opportunity there. Obviously, more to come from NRCS. FSA's got an involvement in this as well. This is really an FPAC-wide initiative. So we may not have the traditional, in fact, we will not have the traditional involvement in this like you would anticipate with like our EQIP program. This looks, feels extremely more broad, more open. So I think it's going to be a neat opportunity, and highly encourage anyone on this call to kind of look into it a little bit further. More to come on that, I am sure. But we're doing some other things here in Maryland. Steve Strano has been doing an awesome job when it comes to our technology and targeting of watershed work towards sea level rise on the Eastern Shore. Again, heavily working with partners such as Ducks Unlimited and the Nature Conservancy, University of Maryland Extension. So hats off to Steve and his assistants there. So enough on those couple priorities. Let me touch on our staffing for a moment, because this is a real positive one as well. We've been staffing up here in Maryland through several hiring opportunities. And it looks like that trend is going to continue. And that's extremely exciting. We're at about 103 employees on board right now. And we're going to be adding more, potentially 17 to 20 is where we would like to kind of continue to make some additions. So again, opportunities, extremely bright opportunities. It does kind of make me reflect on, where when this graph goes back here to the left, when we were around that 80 staffing number, kind of just wishing and hoping and all our problems would be solved if we could just get this thing up to about 100 staff. And oh my gosh, what if we actually had 120 staff around here? Think of everything we could get done. And all of that is very true and accurate, but there's a lesson to be learned in all this that I'm trying to reflect on as well, in terms of being kind of happy and content and getting the most out of what you have. And really that comes back in this scenario to training, development, and retention of this staff. My hat's off to, again, Steve, Jaquay, Phil King, our technical team, as they've been putting together trainings and planning trainings, getting those communicated out to the partnership. I think one of the best ones here lately has been the orientation for new employees and new partners as well. And one of the coolest things about that I really appreciate is the partnership involvement. There's MASCD speakers, there's NRCS speakers, there's MDA speakers, all providing training to this mutual situation of new staff that we have. So really cool contributions there. And again, additional trainings are happening on the engineering side. That's definitely picking up. And then Steve also let me know that this spring they'll be doing a new a CD and CART training for new employees. And again, excited about the opportunity that MDA is providing, that they're going to be adding some staff at this training, the training level here, and we will absolutely be coordinating and working with them. So really good things to come on when it comes to the training side of things. All right, what else? Oh my gosh, I'm already sounding like Dr. Hillsman. What else? Why don't I think one of the last things here I want to touch on is the operations at the field office level, both as it relates to COVID protocols and all that kind of stuff. As we have seen, the Maryland numbers are getting much better, and that is corresponding with our ability to bring staff back further into field offices. The presence is being increased in many cases from 25 up to 50 up to 75% of staff are welcome back at any given time. Our district conservationists have done a phenomenal job, in my opinion, of managing this situation at the local level. We've put them in tough spots in terms of trying to figure out how many staff are supposed to be there, but yet we're still telling them, don't you interrupt service to the customer. We got to make sure that's going along smoothly. So that's a tough situation to balance and maximize. And largely what I can see is they've done an excellent job. So thank you, district conservationists. And I know that's not done in a vacuum. That's them sitting across the table there and across the room or virtually with the district managers. So nice job on the local leadership all. Longer term, we are considering what options that we have for field offices for any type of extended telework. There's been a lot of successes, a lot of flexibilities that have been taken advantage of in a positive way as it relates to remote work, telework, and it's something that we're not just considering but supporting in moving forward. And as we kind of the theme here that we delegate that decision making down to the local level. Our district conservationists are visiting with their counterparts, trying to come up with a solution that works for the office, works for the employees. And the whole thing with remote work, virtual meetings, telework, it's it's uncomfortable still because it's new. Yeah, we've been doing it for 2 years, but we've been doing it the old way for NRCS, at least for the 80 plus years that we've been providing conservation services. So it's still extremely new to us. But it offers a lot of opportunities. Byron touched on this as well with the how crowded our field offices are, the space concerns, the expenses associated with all that. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity here. It's nothing that we want to pivot towards in a fast direction, but it's something that we want to continue to explore and see what opportunities it has to offer, and do that really with an ear and a listening wide open towards the partnership and our customers. Are we serving them, and can we also take advantage of these new opportunities? So that's a little bit about where we stand with back to work, near term, long term. It was touched on that I'm certainly am very optimistic about where we are and where things are going. But the devils are in the details. Ray Archuleta touched on that at the Soil Health Conference this week. That was one of his key themes. So yeah, we could create a perfect partnership here in Maryland, but if we're doing it in a way that is leaving out our conservation customer and the person that we're trying to serve in the first place, well, that's not going to do us a whole lot of good. Hans absolutely hit that on the head with our programs, our services need to work for the people that we're here for in the first place. That's certainly not lost on me. It's not lost on the team up here. It's wonderful to hear Hans echoing that, hearing MDA pulling in the harness. We're right there with them. We're going to be meeting at the leadership level. Hans and I have already discussed this to an extent, but that only does a little bit of good. We need to kind of have the full team pulling in the harness. So we're going to have our leadership team meeting with the MDA leadership team, making sure that we're maximizing on each other's abilities and resources when we look at these new initiatives and really our current initiatives as well. A huge thank you to Jen Nelson, the leadership she brings to the position there with MASCD. Wonderful to work with and just a forward-looking individual. So thank you very much, Jen. I think I'll stop there and ask for any questions, or Bruce, I'll certainly turn it back to you for continuation. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions for Rob on NRCS? Okay, we'll go on to Envirothon.
Good morning, everybody. This is Bruce with St. Mary's. I am the co-chair or vice chair of the Maryland Envirothon, and I do want to let everybody know that Craig Hartsock has finally retired from his position as Envirothon coordinator in Maryland. And I'm very thankful to the board of directors of MASCD in allowing us to go out and do a direct hire for Karen Miller, former district manager in Kent Soil Conservation District, or Soil and Water Conservation District in Kent County. She has come on board. We signed a contract with her on February 2nd. So she's hit the ground running. She's done a couple things for us already. She has gone out. In the past, we've been paying for phone service for the Envirothon coordinator. Karen was able to get a good price on just getting a cell phone that'll go around with the Envirothon coordinator, whether it be her or somebody in the near future or later on. That number is 302-683-5524. She's also got a new email, which she will be able to access because she is working out of her home there in Kent County, and that is mdenvirothon1990@gmail.com. So that is the email that you can get directly in touch with Karen Miller on, and then also the phone number. As part of our last planning meeting that Maryland Envirothon had, we have canceled our contract with Mount St. Mary's University, which was for a 3-day event there for this June, due to the COVID and uncertainty of what's going on. But what we do plan on doing is a 1-day in-person event. It'll be at the University of Maryland Clarksville Farm, and I believe that's in Howard County, on Wednesday, June 22nd of this year. So we're still working out the details on that. We're working very closely with the University of Maryland on that to utilize the facilities. What we may have to do is rent a large tent or something out there. We certainly will have to bring in porta-johns or a facility for that because it is out on the farm and there aren't any facilities there. So we'll make it do. We're used to that when we set up for our national events anyway out on farms. Again, it will be in person. We do plan on having the 4 areas that are standard each year: aquatics, forestry, soils, and wildlife. My understanding is there's several soils pits already dug out at the Clarksville farm, so that'd be great. And our 5th issue this year is waste to resources. We are leaning heavily on the Department of the Environment with assistance from MDA and University of Maryland Extension to be the group that is going to be providing that training and competition test to the students. So again, that's waste to resources is the 5th issue. We'll still have 5 40-minute exams for the event. I do want to make sure that each county knows that you can only send 1 team, just the same as we normally have with the Maryland Envirothon. We're going to leave it up to each soil conservation district and county as to how they select their 1 5-member team to represent their county. That could be whether they hold virtual events locally or whether they do in-person competitions. That's going to be up to the local soil conservation districts. But they will have to go and have their dues paid to participate. I don't believe all districts have paid dues as of yet. So if you want to send a team, you have to have those dues paid. And I think that pretty much covers everything for the Maryland Envirothon up to this point.
Hey, Bruce, I'm on here and I have a few things to add to that.
Alrighty, Karen.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for approving me to represent the Maryland Envirothon. It's nice to know that I'm still going to get to work with everybody that I've worked with over the last 34 years. But the registration material for the Envirothon is going to come out by April 1st. So all the district managers should be getting that in their email by then. The 5th issue exam is going to be sent to each district by mid-March. That'll be ready to go. And Craig also wanted to remind everybody not to forget their Wild Wing orders by March 1st. So that's at, you got to the end of the month, excuse me, to get those orders into him. He's going to continue to finish out the Wild Wings this year and have them sent to his office for now. And also the lower shore, the Maryland Envirothon is still in need of a representative for the committee. You have Karen Houtman from Dorchester, who is one of your representatives, but we also need a second representative. That's been empty since Larry Fikes left. And so if you guys can be thinking about that there on the lower shore, it'd be nice to be able to finish out the committee and have 2 people down there, somebody to help Karen. And I think that's all I've got. You've
Hey,
covered
Karen,
everything.
congratulations. And
All right,
can you
thank you.
enter your information in the chat box, that your email and your cell phone?
Okay, I could do that. Let me see how I get to the chat box.
It's up at the top right. It's a little message bubble next to the people with the.
Oh, okay, I see it. Yeah, I can put it in there. And the website for the Maryland Envirothon has also already been updated with that phone number and that website too. But I'll put it in the chat box.
All right. Thank you, Bruce and Karen. Karen, congratulations. Nice to see a familiar face in a new position. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to working with everyone.
We'll move into new business now, and I believe Elmer's not here, so Endowment Committee. Bruce, are you handling that as well?
I am, Bruce.
Go for it.
Okay, just want to let everybody know that we did have 2 applications for the mini grant through the endowment. One was from Dorchester County SCD, the other was from Prince George's County SCD. I believe those funds have gone out to those districts for 2022. Total from the endowment over the last 3 years, going back to 2020 and inclusive of 2022, we've given away 7 mini grants, totaling about $10,218. Just want to kind of tell you where we are with that at this point. As far as how the endowment is doing, currently the balance is $513,708.19. You saw as part of the financials that in FY21, the endowment brought in a profit of $78,951.96. I want to add on to that through the first 2 quarters of FY22, we've added an additional $26,125.42. So over the last year and a half, the endowment has really been working for us with a profit of $105,077.38. The whole purpose, of course, of the endowment was to provide funds for education for the districts. As I said, we've had 7 mini grants that have been offered. One of the items that Elmer, Marguerite, and I have talked a little bit about via emails is how we want to manage the profits, and we'll put this to the board of directors or all of MASCD. We would like to request that we start pulling some of the profits each quarter and moving into the endowment checking so that we could pay for mini grant requests from the districts to cover whether they use it for Envirothon or any of their other educational programs that they may have, as well as potentially offsetting some of the administrative or operating expenses of the Maryland Envirothon. Through the process of what we've been doing, we've been relying heavily on grants from outside groups and agencies. NRCS has been very supportive over the last 3 years. Unfortunately, our grant request through them is on hold right now because NRCS is still continuing under a continuing resolution, so there's nothing been finalized on our request through NRCS. This would have to be approved by the MASCD Board of Directors for us to do any of that, but speaking for Elmer and myself through the committee and then Marguerite who manages the funds, we thought that this would be the best way to be able to have funding available for the mini grant, as well as whether Envirothon needed some funds as well. But I think it's doing great. We have over $500,000 in the endowment since it's been started. So it's now starting to provide enough money so that we can see return on that initial investment. And that's really all I have, Bruce, unless there's any questions.
That's great news. Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate that. Okay, Jen, small pond review update.
Bruce, would it be okay to switch something around on the agenda just in case people do have to drop off at noon? I don't think we're going to run much over, but can we talk about the March board meeting date real quick?
You can do whatever you would like.
I was looking, normally our March board meeting dates in March and October are spelled out in the manual, but there's a conflict for the next one that would be on March 22nd. I know Bruce has kind of a standing conflict with those dates, and I'm going to be on my lead Delaware trip, I hope. And so we were wondering if it is possible to move that back to March 29th instead.
Does that require a motion since it's in the bylaws, I think?
Since it's in the manual, I would like to have one, yeah.
Make a motion. Could I have a motion to change that date?
Mr. Chair, Cal Stewart from Prince George's. I move that the March meeting be set for March the 29th, 2022.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Hartford seconds.
All those opposed? Or all those in favor? I'm sorry, all those opposed. Thank you. It's been moved.
Okay. Okay.
What's
So
next?
now I'll go to the small pond review update.
Okay.
So just, I'm not sure how many people, I'll back up for a quick second to start us off with what has been going on in a nutshell. At the beginning of 2021, NRCS looked at the services that they provide to the districts to conduct small pond reviews and made a decision to step back and from offering those reviews in urban settings and to focus on small pond reviews that are connected to a soil conservation plan. And so over the last year in 2021, the districts had looked at some of the implications of that and how they could continue to provide those small pond reviews and approvals for cooperators and developers in their individual districts. And there's a lot of diversity across the state in terms of how different districts handle these reviews, whether they have engineering on staff or if they have agreements with the county. But in October, we held a series of regional meetings to discuss some of the issues with MDE. And how different districts were impacted and to ask questions. And so since the MASCD summer meeting, there was a resolution there for MASCD to develop a template contract and to have MDE review that contract to secure engineering review services for the small ponds. And so I just wanted to give you all an update on what's taken place since then. I see Tom Filbert is on our list of participants as well, so that's great that he can correct me for anything that I get wrong here. But since those meetings have taken place, MDE was initially looking at developing individual MOUs with conservation districts that talk about the qualifications for an engineer and different aspects of the small pond review process that needed to be in place. And so since we've had those meetings in October, MDE has kind of shifted their strategy and they're planning on issuing a policy that includes those same considerations rather than developing MOUs with individual districts. So they're going to put that together. I don't think it's finalized yet. but basically, their take on that is that a small pond will not be considered approved unless it follows the policy that they have there. So the districts had a couple of questions. There were a number of questions, but two of the biggest ones that needed to be addressed throughout this whole process were questions related to liability associated with approval of small ponds, and then funding mechanisms to cover the engineering services to do this work. And so with that regard, the two updates that we have, so MDA has offered a preliminary unofficial opinion that the districts don't have the authority to charge for small pond reviews right now. So MASCD doesn't have the standing to ask for an official opinion, but we can ask state committee to request an official opinion from the OAG's office, and that could set the stage for MASCD to request a law change in the future that would grant us that authority to charge for those services in next year's session. And then the second piece that I have there regarding the liability and whether or not the districts have exemptions for liability like we do in some of our other work. So the liability and in our resolution from the annual meeting to develop a contract template with language that addresses that liability. So my understanding there is that we are coming back to the idea of developing that contract template. It took us a while to sort of flesh this out with MDE and MDA, but that contract template should include the engineering qualifications that MDE lists in the policy. It should include language to hold the districts harmless and insurance requirements for contractors to offer additional protection for the districts. So I have received some materials from Washington County and from Hartford County to get me started to put that together. So thank you to Quentin and to Elmer for providing those. And I think I've gotten, I have an email from this morning from MDA as well with some additional materials to get me started, but that MDA has offered to review that contract template once we put that together. So they are the appropriate agency to take that on rather than MDE's OAG. So I'm going to stop there to see if anybody has any questions, or Tom, if you have any corrections for me in what I've said so far. Must not have been too bad.
Anybody have any questions for Jen? Jen, you want to continue, or is that wrap that up?
I mean, if everyone's fine, my plan for that is to move forward and work on that contract template. It's just, I know I was supposed to have that ready by this meeting, and I'll have it ready as soon as possible. Now that we have some of those details nailed down.
All right.
Bruce,
thank you.
This
Yes.
is Bruce in St. Mary's. I just have a quick question. Now, knowing that we're not allowed to charge fees, and there was a question that Jen had posed to whether we move forward with doing that so the districts could charge for that, I'm assuming that would need to have some type of MASCD, I guess, motion and second, or to move forward on that to get something together for legislation for next year. And I just don't want that to get glossed over if that's something that needs to be discussed and decided on at the March Board of Directors meeting, because it will take a while to prepare whatever is going to have to go forward to get it in prior to the next legislative session.
I agree, and I think I've talked with Mike Mason about this, and he would appreciate as much lead time as possible to start working on this. And I think the step that we can take in this meeting is to put a request forward to state committee to request that official opinion that would be helpful to have in place in order to move us forward there.
So would March be timely enough, and do you direct that to the legislative committee?
I don't know how fast, I mean, I don't know how fast this can be turned around, but state committee has to take it up first.
Okay, okay. All right, could you start that ball rolling then?
Okay.
Okay.
So before we move, Jen, this is Van. So I hear loud and clear for the state committee side, but I guess I also wanted to throw out the idea of the question of fees for stormwater, but also I think districts should be talking about the ability to charge for E&S review without having to go to their counties for approval. I think that's been a question that many have asked in the past and have struggled with, is the ability to set our own fee structures and fee schedules. So if they're going to move forward with some discussion on the stormwater side, I think hopefully others would agree that let's talk about the E&S ability to charge our own fees as well.
This is Steve Darcy. I just have a comment about what Van just said. I don't think under state law we're reviewing for stormwater management. I think we're reviewing for dam safety. And we already have the law. There's already legislation to charge for E&S. And most districts, I think, are already doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. We have E&S charges, but I think there's been some discussion or concern about the ability to set your own fee schedule without having to go to your county for approval. I could be wrong.
No, I'm sorry. You broke up. Without having to go through what, Van?
Without having to go through your county government for approval of that fee structure.
Yeah, that is the way it is now. So that would take a change in the regulation for sure.
I guess I would throw the question out to other districts. Would they rather have the ability to set their own fee schedule without having to go through the county government for approval?
This is Lee. I think the question comes down to whether the state government only does enabling legislation, or if they can go ahead and pass something without it being enabled where the counties have to act on it as well. So that's probably a question for some lawyer.
This is Steve again from Prince George's. I'm ignorant on how long it takes to make changes in legislation, but since the regulations already afford districts the opportunity to charge for E&S review, it seems like, well, to me, it seems like it's a simple change to add small pond review in there. And is that something we have to wait until next year? We can't get that through this year? Just a question.
My understanding is that, next year, we have to aim for next year, and even aiming for next year, we have to start as soon as possible.
Okay, government runs slow. So in the interim, gets back to my comments earlier, the rubber's hitting the road right now. So I think we need to come up with something to help these districts that don't have engineers.
Jen, this is Heather. I guess I'm trying to figure out how we move forward. Our contract with our engineer it's not very robust. It doesn't contain the information that is going to be needed. We can't rely on NRCS for their JAA right now, is my understanding, unless they've given us some wiggle room. We can't charge for the fees. So how do we pay our engineers? What do we do between now and when this contract gets developed? Can we not approve small ponds right now?
So Heather, my understanding is very clear from MDE that unless we have an engineer on our staff, we cannot approve small ponds. If there's agreement between the county and the county has an engineer, they kind of said that we could continue as normal. But my concern was at the end of the day, the district is still signing off on that small pond. And that's where that liability issue seems to kind of be pestering. And basically what John Roach has told us is that if we're not comfortable with that situation, then through the joint permit that that they would have to apply for MDE to do the review.
And this is Bruce in St. Mary's. That is the understanding that we have. We've placed notice on our webpage as well as notifying our local consultants that effective January 1, any request for small pond approval needed to go through the joint permit application process through MDE. And that's where we're sending everything until such time as all of this gets resolved and straightened out.
But you need to have an MOU in place with your county in order to go down that path, right?
So the MOU that we have would have to be revised because the MOU we currently have with the county includes the review by NRCS. So we would definitely need to have to revise the MOU that would allow the county engineer to do the review, still require the district to do the approval. But again, we have concerns about signing off on something where it's our approval at the end of the day, and whether or not how can we really vouch for what another agency's engineer has said? So I mean, my concern is we would like to have our own engineer, obviously, to be able to kind of check that box. Without that, I feel a little bit exposed.
Let me add one comment. Let me add one comment, please. This is Steve Darcy. I think it's a dangerous precedent if we start as districts start allowing getting MOUs and having local county government review our plans, because that's the first step on a slippery slope to lose your program. You lose your program. There's plenty of county governments that are just would love to take over our program. So I would never do that, at least from Prince George's. I mean, we have, we delegate a little bit to the county, but everything still comes through our office for dam safety and for final review. So I'd be very cautious of doing that.
Jen, this is Louis Diegas. Can you hear me?
Again? Yep.
Okay. Question for you. I guess maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but if ultimately with the MD policy that they've come up with will require certification from a professional engineer to say that the pond meets the specs, then any given district, if they have that certification from their in-house engineer or an engineer they just hired to do that particular pond review, especially right now when we're already under the gun to do this, what's the problem with that? I mean, is there if a particular district gets that certification, are we good?
Right. And so listening to everyone's comments on this, and just to my understanding of it, no one's saying anything that is incorrect to my understanding. That it does have a lot to do with individual districts' comfort level with their arrangement. Heather, to your question, I would say that you would look at the contract that you have with an engineer, with the guidelines that we've talked about today, some of these additional considerations that probably should be included in that contract. And that's the template that I'm going to put together for review. To the fee structure and paying for those services, I think that depends on whether or not you have that latitude with your county government to set ENS fees that are sufficient to cover that work, or if there's an alternative way to get an engineer on staff that can provide those services. You know, so those are some of the questions that we still have hanging out there to resolve. But you know, if those blocks are in place, Louis, to your point, then yeah, I think that districts are still good to move forward if they have that comfort level and the ability to kind of work it out within their own existing structures.
This is Frank Richardson. Just to take this a step farther, and if we do, each district does end up with having their own engineer, what about the liability insurance? That's the next step.
If the engineer is on staff, that's where I believe the districts are covered under the tort liability piece.
Yeah, that's my understanding, Jen. If that person's actually a district employee, then they're covered under tort claims.
Okay, I got you. You're going that route. All right.
Still work to be done. I understand, you know, that I haven't answered all questions, but that's sort of where we're sitting right now, and at least I feel like we have kind of a path outlined on moving forward. So, am I okay to move on to the annual meeting?
I would, yes.
Okay. I know we're running over a little bit, so I just want to give you all an update on where we're at with the combined MASCD and NAC. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat while I'm trying to talk. And the NACD Northeast Region meeting. So the dates for that, we've already secured the dates and the room blocks, the structure of the agenda with the hotel, but that's going to be August 28th to August 31st. It's a day longer than our typical annual meeting, where on the last day, NACD typically has a capacity building workshop, and we can also try to work in a training for managers or something on that day as well. So the MASCD and NACD meetings are going to run concurrently, not back to back. So we're working on a landing page on MASCD's website for the meeting, and we're working on an online registration for that to try and make it a little easier for everyone to find information and register that way. We're seeking sponsorships to help with the cost of the meeting and producing income for the organization. And so the agenda that we're working on, it'll look a little different, I think, than what we typically have with the MASCD annual meeting. We're going to have more breakout sessions. Some of them are going to be technical, and some of them are going to be focused on capacity building topics. So we had put out a survey and received some responses from within Maryland and also some of the partners in other states. And so it seems like we have some of our greatest interest in soil health initiatives, emerging climate change issues and strategies for adaptation and carbon sequestration. So a lot of our technical breakout sessions are going to be focused on those topics. And then within capacity building, people sounded like they were interested in looking at innovative partnerships, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what that looks like, kind of like how is that turned into an action at the district level, and also succession planning for supervisors and building up boards and looking at boards success in the long term. So those are some of the topics that we're going to be focused on. We're also looking at putting together a series of tours in the area in the afternoon on that Tuesday, followed by a crab feast. So just to let you know, give you a sense of what we're putting together. One thing that we do need to approve here, though, is looking at the registration fees. And so Missy had done a great job in communicating with the hotel to find out what we could do in terms of menu prices and what that looked like. And then within our manual, we have some guidance for what we can charge for registration fees on top of that. And so putting together the menu costs with the that $75 registration fee, we came up with a registration cost of $340 for the 4 days for a regular registration and $265 for lifetime members. And so I think I need a thumbs up on that so that we can move forward with those registration costs for the 2022 meeting.
Hey, Jen, what were the dates again?
Sure, August 28th to August 31st.
Okay. Oh yeah, okay. So that's okay. That's Sunday through Wednesday.
Yep.
Okay, that's good.
That's right, Frank.
And Jen, just to clarify, as far as the registration, we're registering just for the one event, so we don't have to pay registration for both MASCD and NECD?
Yes, that's correct. So it's a combined meeting, so that's going to be the registration for
Okay,
the
gotcha.
combined meeting. Yep.
Yep.
Jen, you need a motion?
I think I do.
I think you do too.
Can I have a motion for that?
This is Cal, Prince George's. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the registration fees and financial structures for our annual meeting as set forth this afternoon.
Okay, is there a second?
Before we second, actually, there's one piece that I need to add to that. That we're still working out the costs for like transportation for the tours and crab feasts and things like that. Those are going to be add-ons to the general registration. Just to give everybody a heads up on that before you all vote to make sure that we're on the right track.
Second from Charles in Charles County.
All right, it's been moved and seconded with the addition. All those opposed signify by saying aye. So moved. Unless there's something else, Jen, I think we're at the end of our agenda.
I believe we are as well.
So unless anybody else has anything, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move, we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those opposed to adjourning? Signify by saying aye. So moved. Thank you. It was a great meeting. Hopefully here in the near term, we'll get back to face-to-face. So I look forward to talking to you in March. Thank you and stay well.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everybody.